Hey guys, out here. Welcome back to the second episode, the second part of Is Kayfabe Truly Dead? We just had Joey Legend on, in about a kind of in a matter of moments. We'll have this is a man who was a Ring of Honor, who's been everywhere. Ring of Honor, TNA, WWE, all around. His he worked recently. He worked for WWE. He's been on AEW. Well, not on television, he didn't wrestle, but he's been still wrestling to this day. And honestly, he should be. Honestly, I honestly know him because because of that infamous set picture that he's posted with the Bullet Club with the Young Bucks. But you know what? It's just a picture. Today, we kind of get away with, since kayfabe is behind the scenes stuff. It should all right should be should be revealed, it should be lenient towards stuff like that. But you know, it's it's honestly a good idea to kind of be more lenient on that. Honestly, he should be back in WWE, but you know what? Well, how am I to judge about this man? Now, I'm going to introduce the man, the one, the only, Jumpin' Jimmy Jacobs. Thank you for coming on, man.
Jumpin' Jimmy Jacobs. It's been a while since I've had a pogo stick, but that works for me.
Well, I just kind of had a couple nicknames, so I kind of used Jumpin' Jimmy Jacobs because that runs off the tongue.
That's why I picked it 27 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah, to be honest, the first time the thing that comes to mind, the first thing that I think of your name is that wow, you used to be a writer for WWE.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So so tell me how what tell me a little about the how you were hired by WWE to be on the board and just writing storylines and like going through like the creative process, to say.
Yeah, so I had been in wrestling on the independents for about 15 or 16 years, from 1999 till 2015. But in 2014, I saw that my journey wasn't really like I had hit a wall. I had plateaued. My career had plateaued, and it dawned on me that my path was to go into the creative aspect behind the scenes in WWE. I just made some phone calls. I built up a certain amount of goodwill and a certain reputation in the wrestling business for that last 16 years. So I called Seth Rollins, I called Joey Mercury, I called Bryan Danielson, and I was like, "Hey, this is what's going on." I got booked as an extra. I think Seth got me booked as an extra for 3 shows. We did like Cleveland, Detroit, Grand Rapids. It was a TLC Raw and SmackDown in December of 2014. And I went there to get a job as a writer. And Bryan Danielson and Joey Mercury brought me to the Dave Kapoor, who was the manager of the writing team at that point. And Bryan said, "This is Jimmy Jacobs. He's a genius. He belongs in your team." And that was high praise from one of the greatest of all time. And after that, I had an interview, I gave a writing sample, and eventually that was in December of 2014, and I was hired and started with WWE on April 1st of 2015. I can't hear you.
I forgot I was muted. Sorry. So back when I was about to say, so how I basically how I remember it, about you put I think it was how WWE changed over the years since you've were last there as a writer. Um, with you said when you posted, like, I think you said a picture with the Young Bucks, when which led eventually led to your either your termination or your resignation. um i think I think if you were in WWE today, I think that would be more lenient because it's kayfabe is not isn't as protected as it was.
Well, I don't think it was a matter of kayfabe. I mean, you have to remember the Young Bucks and Cody and Marty Scurll and Hangman Adam Page. They were outside of Raw doing the YouTube show, Being the Elite, kind of like taking the piss out of WWE. In a similar way that DX was a parody off of what DX when DX did the invasion of WCW all those years ago. So there were guys who didn't work for WWE that showed up outside of a WWE show to take the piss out of WWE. And me, a WWE employee, took a picture with them and used the hashtag BC Invasion, giving the thumbs up to what they were doing. So I understand completely why I was fired for it. Like it wasn't a shock to me when I was fired. I didn't think I was going to get fired, but when I did, I wasn't like, oh no, that was unexpected. It was like, yeah, I acted out. I wasn't happy there, so I acted like a child, and they fired me. And and it was a relief when they did.
Yeah. I mean, I think because it's because WWE is like really like restricting on like associating with people from other companies. It's more essential. More, you could argue that.
I
Um,
wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say they're restrictive particularly about that. I think they're protective of their image, and certainly when Vince was there, they were more protective of it in some ways. Hunter is different than Vince. TKO is different than Vince. So Vince
yeah.
had his idiosyncrasies. So Vince was probably less patient with that kind of behavior. But Hunter wasn't happy about it. Hunter was the one that was mad about it. So
Oh,
yeah,
it was Hunter that was mad about it. It wasn't
I mean,
Vince that says like, God damn it.
initially, yeah, it was Hunter. It was brought to Hunter's attention first. I don't think Vince was at Raw that day. I don't think. Yeah. So so Hunter was made aware of it. I don't know how and when Vince was made aware of it. I don't know, who decided I should be fired, but Hunter wasn't happy. I talked to Hunter, and at the end of the conversation, he said he wasn't gonna, pursue, getting me fired over it. So I don't think it was him, but he wasn't happy. And again, I get it. I totally understand. Like if it was my company, I would have been happy either.
Well, to kind of segue onto that, since you've been in WWE, or were in WWE for as a writer, and even a couple matches you actually were wrestled for WWE prior to being a writer, um, including a match with Eddie Guerrero, and that, if I'm correct about that, what I'm gonna ask, uh. What was your when you first joined the creative team and come up until you were terminated from the company? What was your relationship like with Vince or the
Um,
McMahon?
Vince didn't get me, that's for sure. I had a very difficult time with him. Vince is a bully. I would say he's something like a grandiose narcissist, something like that. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist. I can't exactly pinpoint what sort of pathology is going on with him. It's the same sort of pathology, same sort of character type as like a Donald Trump type. So it's like if you see the character that Donald Trump plays on television, or the character that
Yep,
Vince McMahon plays on
I
television,
understand what you mean.
that's a
Yep,
version of who
understand.
Vince is in real life. So
Yeah,
Vince is a bully. He's a bit of a predator, as we're seeing, as sort of what's come out. And I know that's only the tip of the iceberg. I don't know for.
yeah,
I have witness testimony that I've heard that's like, yes, that's the tip of the iceberg. People that were there firsthand. So I can't speak to that 100%, but yes, I've heard, and I experienced working for him. I saw the sort of bully he was. I saw how he liked to pick on people. I saw how, law of the jungle, and he considered himself the sort of alpha male of this little world he built into, and he was right. It was his world. But yeah, I had a challenging time with that. I think a lot of people had a challenging time with that. I'll speak for myself. I had a challenging time with that. Vince didn't get me. He thought I was a weirdo. He thought he's like the Nakamura of the writing team, because when I talked, I would use my hands a lot. Yeah, so Vince thought I was a weirdo. He was hard to appease. He was crazy. He was crazy. He would constantly sort of change what's going on and change his mind. And you didn't know what, we used to joke that there were clones of him because we'd have meetings with him. He would leave the room in one mood, come back in a different mood. And it seems like he forgot everything we just talked about or whatever. It's like Vince was, I mean, self-admittedly, he'll call himself the devil. So believe someone when they speak, right? So Vince is that sort of personality type. So yeah, that's challenging.
Well, so how was that different with Hunter? Do you still?
Yeah, so Hunter, like, Vince wasn't human. Like, he's a different kind of creature. He's like a psychopath, right? So he's not like quite human. His like humanness, that like love that like normal humans engage in, and it fills them up. Vince isn't like that, and he's very hard, and he's very eccentric because of some of that. He's a weirdo. Hunter is like a dude. Could he be like a difficult sometimes? Sure, everybody can. But he was a guy. I could pitch Hunter an idea the same way I could pitch anybody else an idea. Vince McMahon, you have to like go through this whole song and dance and make sure you're feeding him the idea exactly correctly, because if he gets confused, it's your fault. And if you don't include something, it's your fault. But if you include too much, it's your fault. It's like, oi. Hunter wasn't like that. Hunter was a dude. I think Hunter's in some ways, I mean, he's the best producer in physicality I've ever seen in my life, like by far. I mean, Michael Hayes was great, but like I thought from what I saw, Triple H was on on a different level than everybody else as far as producing physicality, producing stuff. Like he just has an amazing. He has like a genius level mind for. Triple H has a genius level mind for certain things in wrestling, no doubt.
Well, and definitely over the years since you last worked there, Triple H has definitely involved the company, well, TKO in some aspects, for better or worse, who can say, because since he was, CEO, chief content officer of WWE, since WWE and UFC are on both under the same ladder, I think I could argue that have you Captain, does he so sorry, I'm trying to think of the question. So Triple H is when so have you talked to him after you left WWE?
No, I didn't have that sort of relationship with Triple H. I wasn't. We didn't like collaborate closely together or anything like that. I had only been in WWE I was only there for 2.5 years, and I had worked my way up. I was after a year they promoted me to senior writer, and by the time I had left, on Raw I had just finished up working the John Cena Roman Reigns storyline. On SmackDown I was in the middle of Kevin Owens versus and Shane McMahon storyline. So I was moving my way up the
Corporate ladder.
Yeah, but I wasn't at the spot yet where Triple H is calling me and going, "Hey, are you?" We weren't like that at all.
Yeah.
I was just kind of a newer writer that had some ability, that was working my way up, and a bit of a weirdo. That was who I was in WWE.
Let's see. But let's talk a little bit more about your in-ring career, which you're still wrestling to this day. Let's talk about a little bit about your Ring of Honor. You're basically a legend there. Now that Tony Khan has ownership, AEW has ownership over a Ring of Honor as its sister promotion. What I know you've been on AEW programming, so to speak, not in like a wrestling capacity, but were able to kind of dip your toe in AEW. What when you were there, what was the atmosphere like compared to WWE?
It was a much different backstage process. That was the biggest thing to adjust to. I was sort of trained to produce wrestling television like the WWE way. Sure, I'd done like smaller TVs, where ROH we were on HDNet, and they had syndicated TV, up until 2000. When I was there, the last 4 years I was there, I had done smaller TV shows, local TV, but WWE is really where I learned how to like the process in producing wrestling television, which I somewhat then, took that when I was in TNA for 5.5 years, but TNA kind of had their own way of doing things. And, I went to AEW, they had their own way of doing things. It was very, very different than WWE, very, very different than TNA. And I was a bit caught off guard because it still worked. It was just way different than what I was used to.
I see. So when you were in Ring of Honor, so let's move on to actually your in-ring career in Ring of Honor. You've definitely, like you mentioned, quite a couple people you worked with in Ring of Honor, like Tyler Black, known as Seth Rollins, and you mentioned Bryan Danielson, who was in Ring of Honor as well, and several others. What was the Ring of Honor atmosphere like when you were there and continue to take occasional bookings for Ring?
So, Ring of Honor, when I was there from 2003 to 2009, then 2011 to 2015. So I was there through kind of like most of the different eras. I went through all the different bookers I'd worked for ROH and the different owners. The earlier days, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, that era. That was there. It was exciting. It was an exciting time. Like, it was the place to be. All the top independent names were there. It's like where you want to end up. And I ended up there at 19 years old, which was awesome. And it was just exciting. It was exciting being young and in my early 20s and, doing these shows with other guys that like this is what they wanted to do. Like, they wanted to be like pro wrestlers in a way that a lot of the guys in the independents that I was working with didn't. You work with these guys that are kind of like weekend warriors, and then you work in Ring of Honor. It's like, yes, these are like, I want to be a part of this group, a part of the group that's going to shape the future of professional wrestling. That's ultimately what Ring of Honor did, I think. Me, like back in the early days, like we used to cram people in a hotel room. They'd give us like 6 hotel rooms for the weekend, and we used to just cram like everybody in there. And me and Seth and El Generico and the Young Bucks and sometimes Kevin Owens and just whomever else would be up in the room.
Yeah.
We would talk all night about pro wrestling and the wrestling business and what we were going to do and how to change it and how to make it better. And it's like, that's what ended up happening, which is wild. I mean, those guys certainly had a bit more of an impact on the state of this business than I did, but there was a group of us. And I would say that the era we're living in now is really the Ring of Honor era. Like, I would say Ring of Honor created or like honed in the style that became the style of pro wrestling today. And AEW is basically like ROH with full production. It's a very similar product, right?
Yeah. So you don't think it's any different from when you were there when you worked for Ring of Honor before was that acquisition under the AEW banner or under the ownership of AEW?
Yeah, no, I think ROH now is way different than ROH used to be back in the day. I think what ROH was back in the day is kind of like what AEW is now. Like, ROH morphed into AEW. What's ROH now is kind of like, it's just like the ashes of something. It's like, it's what's ROH now, I wouldn't say is like, has the same spirit that Ring of Honor had 20 years ago. I would say AEW has the spirit that Ring of Honor had 20 years ago.
I see. No, there's a lot of people that are wrestling today that came out of Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is basically like wrestling royalty. like
Right.
people like Kevin Steen, like you mentioned, El Generico. People, you can argue CM Punk was more like kind of got quite a lot of recognition from being in Ring of Honor, you know. And quite a lot of people, like I think Drew Gulak was in Ring of Honor at one point.
I mean,
Um,
a lot of guys were. I mean, a ton of guys that went on to do very well in wrestling came through Ring of Honor. Yes.
yeah, and and you mentioned when you were when you were in TNA, when you wrestled occasionally for them. Um, how was the atmosphere like in TNA when you were there?
So
If you remember.
I went to TNA right after I got fired from WWE. So I got fired from WWE in October of 2017. Scott D'Amore had just taken over. It was called Impact at the time. Had just
Hmm.
taken over TNA, and when I came in, it was the first pay-per-view and TV tapings that, like, with Scott just in charge. And I've known Scott since I was like 16 years old. So he had called me up and going, "Hey, you want to come and to the Bound for Glory and these TV tapings, see if this is a good fit." And it was a good fit. Part of what Scott was doing when he took over was like restructuring the company. They were still spending money like they were on Spike TV, but they didn't have Spike TV money coming in. And so when I came
Hmm.
in, we were in like a restructuring, like just like a downsizing, like taking these guys that had like big contracts and replacing them with guys that are doing like, you know, for a few $100 a day that were wrestling. So we were basically like TV wrestling on a budget. And I was a good fit partly because I had a lot of experience both as a, you know, as a performer and behind the scenes, you know, producing promos, producing matches even. Um, and yeah, so they needed somebody that could wear a lot of hats, that could do it for, you know, fairly cheap. And, you know, yeah, so it was a good fit. And coming from Vince McMahon, who micromanaged everything at that point in TNA, we really didn't have much to lose. So like we could try a lot of different stuff. Like I had a lot more creative freedom, especially in the first couple of years in TNA than WWE. It was a real breath of fresh air when I started there.
Well, so let's talk about a little bit more earlier in your career when you were start getting into wrestling, when you were exposed to it, and when you decided, you know what, how about I get in this business and be as a wrestler, and then maybe evolve from there. You came up in wrestling under the tutelage of Truth Martini, is that right?
I mean, somewhat like, you know, I with the place I trained, the guy who trained me, his name is El Tejano, Joe Ortega, and it wasn't like great training. And truth, somebody that, especially sort of like early on in my career, helped clean up some of this stuff that no one had ever like really sat down and taught me.
Oh, so it was Joe Ortega and El Tejano were the people that kind of
Yeah,
were helped you in the ring.
yeah,
Mm.
El Tejano, yeah, his real name was Joe Ortega. El Tejano
Oh,
was like
okay.
officially El Tejano, but like the kind of the assistant trainer there was Frankie the Face. Um, who was a buddy of mine. Uh, but yeah, so but sometimes, yeah, I'll give Truth credit for like just cleaning up, cleaning things up in my ability. Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure. I just wanted to run by you. I didn't want to go off of something that isn't true. You know,
Yep.
you can hear from the horse's mouth. You also kind of dipped your toe into a place called CZW in IWA Mid South, which are known for as like deathmatch wrestling. You um and in that type of environment is really risky. Like I've seen quite a lot of people you know, use like unusual weapons. Like I've seen a guy like use like glass tables or use a lawnmower, use a weed whacker against somebody's chest. Like when you were working there, what type of stuff were you kind of exposed to when you were when you were just in the deathmatch promotion, when you were going toward making bookings for the deathmatch promotion like CZW and IWA Mid South?
So while CZW and IW Mid South did do death matches, that wasn't all they did. And you know, when I came to IW Mid South in 2002, it had started to gain notoriety as a place where like good wrestlers go, and really guys like CM
Oh.
Colt Cabana, Chris Hero were all making their names there and sort of getting recognized. So while initially IWA became known, popularized for their death matches somewhat, really it was a place for wrestlers to go make a name for themselves. So that's what me and Alex Shelley did in 2003. So he and I just were wrestling each other, and that feud got us the buzz to then go into Ring of Honor, to then go into CZW. And I was only in CZW for like 6 months. I didn't like it there. I didn't like John Zandig. I didn't like those people. I was only 19 or 20 at the time, 19, 20. Yeah. But that was, it was I don't have great things to say.
It wasn't your cup of tea, basically.
The human beings there weren't
so
I wanted to be around, and eventually they stopped booking me, and I was happy when they stopped booking me. I had an altercation with somebody there that I didn't like the way it was handled. Looking back, 20 plus years later, that's when I can go, oh yeah, look at the promoter, John Zandig was, all these people they're just who cares? They're not good people. They're people. They're people that put on wrestling shows. I could work for them and it's fine. But if you're talking about like a good person, it's like, no.
I see.
So yeah, but IWA Mid-South was really where I cut my teeth and made my name for myself. So I have done some matches that are not quite death match. I did a no rope barbed wire match one time for
more like an Extreme Rules type hardcore match, but not like a death match typically.
So I did a no rope barbed wire match at IW Mid South, and that was that's what it was. I've done other matches. I did a match with Nick Gage in 2017 or 18 through some glass something. I've been in the ring with glass a couple times in my career. It's not something I try.
I see the criticism with deathmatch wrestling. It's pretty kind of like a little too extreme for people. Like it's a little bit more extreme than like ECW. ECW kind of brought out like these tables, people like New Jack and the Dudleys and the Baldies, like all those types of people and the types of weapons that were exposed there. And I understand where you're coming from because they use unusual weapons and like they're like different spots that they do is like really kind of death defying more so. I can see your person like for not personal preference or not really dislike for it.
It's just for me. It's just I don't want to.
Understand.
I don't want to get all carved.
Yeah, I understand.
But if other people want to do it, I have no criticism of that. It's just I'm saying that wasn't my path, and I did dip into some of the more hardcore stuff sometimes. I did a lot of like brawling and things like that, more like just type brawls. A couple times it started to walk its way into things that were a little more extreme, and I try to walk that right back.
I see. Yeah. And you have respect, and I can respect that. I like I was just saying, I have respect that. That's what the pro wrestling business is around. It's about, paying your dues and giving respect to the veteran wrestlers, and that are at the shows, and at least you dipped your toe in it and you tried it and you don't like it. It's at least, at least you dipped your toe in it. At least that's and to have an opinion. That's anyway. Throughout what was throughout like all the companies like I just mentioned with WWE, like you had your couple matches there, Ring of Honor and TNA, where you had quite a bit of matches. What was like the locker room atmosphere like?
So I mean, I wasn't in the locker room particularly in WWE, TNA, or AEW, and I was in the office. So once I went from Ring of Honor in 2015 to WWE, I became an office guy. And like I was so from 2017 to like maybe like early 2020, I was still wrestling most weekends. 2020 until now, starting in 2020, I wouldn't have considered myself like a professional wrestler anymore. Like, you know what I mean? I was office starting in 2015, and it took me about 5 years to go, no, yeah, I'm an office guy. I'm not really a performer guy anymore. So to speak of the locker rooms isn't really something I have particular firsthand knowledge of. I was in a different part of the company, you know.
So in WWE or TNA, you can't really say you haven't had any first-hand experience, or at least enough to form that.
In the locker room, yeah. I mean, I could tell you about the people that were there, and I worked with the wrestlers, but I wasn't in the locker room as one of the wrestlers going, oh, this is the dynamic of being a wrestler in this company. I don't have a frame of reference for what it means to be a WWE wrestler, an AEW wrestler, or a TNA wrestler from firsthand experience. I could give you my observations about what I saw other people go through, but I never went through it.
Like, and I asked like also about your long tenure on and off with Ring of Honor. I was asking what the locker room, this atmosphere was like there, since you were, an on-screen character. And
yeah, I'll kind of circle back to a bit of what I said before. To me, it was like guys that were like really hungry, that wanted to change the wrestling business, that wanted to like do something, and guys that wanted to be the best. I got along with the locker room in Ring of Honor, best that I know. I was kind of insane though, so maybe people didn't like it. I cherish that time. I cherish that time, especially early on with those guys, with like all of us, like just like hungry, and we're in this company, but none of us are like rich. We're not like making a ton of money, but this is the number 3 company, and some guys are in Japan too. It's like, so we're these guys that are sort of like on the cusp of like everything, and being in that position was it was a fun time. I cherish that. I cherish sharing the experience of chasing my dreams with other guys. Yeah, it was a good time.
Okay. Well, and I can, and you should, honestly, like, it's like with like, it brings a lot, like, it gets a lot of memories over your long time there with Ring of Honor. And I feel like you said, they were hungry guys, like a Ring of Honor in its infancy, like from like the early 2000s, maybe up till like maybe the early 2010s. Like there was these newer, like old, like newer recognizable people, like you just mentioned, like Bryan Danielson and CM Punk and Kevin Steen, like all those types of people, and go on to do things. And you share the locker room with those people. Well, we could say, and share the same time frame also, if you could, to put it more fairly. Would I be wrong about
sure.
that? Yep. Okay, I'm just making sure. So throughout your career, right before you decided to dip your toe into wrestling, what was one or more of the idols, or that motivated you, like, how about I try pro wrestling as a career? How about that? Like, I want to be like him. I want to be in the ring. I want to take the bumps. I want to, to know the spots, like go hide spots and learn all the choreography that came with it.
Mick Foley was my guy. Starting in somewhere in 1997. I'd basically stopped watching wrestling for somewhere in like 94 to somewhere in 97. When I started watching again in 97, I saw Mankind, and I saw he did a sit down. There's like a 3-part sit down interview series with him and Jim Ross. This is where he talks about Dude Love, and they have the video of him jumping off his garage, and he talks about eating bugs as a kid or something like that. And I watched that, and I was like, yo, that's like me. That's me. I was eating bugs in grade school to try to like gross out girls. I'm jumping off my garage onto mattresses. That's me. And Mick became my guy. And when he did the Hell in a Cell in 1998, I remember watching it. I remember where I was. I remember like after the match, I'd go outside and just like breathe, because my mind was like blown by what I had just seen. So yeah, was totally Mick Foley. And, you know, I've got to work with him a few times. We've got to work together in WWE. I remember I was in WWE and we were in Detroit, and I didn't produce this promo, but the main event promo was Mick Foley, and the storyline is he's gonna have to fire somebody by the end of the night. You know, he's the general manager of Raw. Who's he gonna fire? And so Stephanie McMahon gets him out in the ring. She's like, "All right, Mick, now's your time. Who you have to decide which one of these people you're gonna fire." You know, and then he ends up firing Stephanie, or he says he's gonna fire Stephanie. I think he gets beat up in it. But Mick cuts this promo, and I'm watching it backstage at 33, 32, 33 years old, and I'm watching this going, if this was the first time I had ever seen Mick Foley, he'd be my guy right now. Like, I just, like, at 33, 32, 33, I was like, I love this dude just like I did when I was 14. Not even for the same reasons I did when I was 14 exactly, but, like, something about the way Mick Foley presents himself, the way he does. You know, I read his book. I think all his books, but his book, A Hardcore Diaries, where he talks about a lot of like his creative process. And I remember reading that when it came out, talking about going into promo land, you know, the place in his mind coming up with new promos. And I go, yes, I know promo land. I spend time in promo land coming up with new ideas and coming up with what I'm going to say. So AEW was just here in Detroit a couple weeks ago, and I dropped by backstage for a couple hours, and I saw Mick there, and he wasn't there when I was working there, which was a surprise, and it was so nice to see him. I love Foley's the man.
And yeah, Mick Foley's just signed an AEW now, and I think he has a job as like I think he has some sort of a either in a commentator role or like an analyst role, like how Vic Joseph, like those types of roles, not like a wrestling role, but there's definitely rumors about, you know, him wrestling one more time, saying, oh, he's gonna definitely face somebody like MJF, like that's
him and Darby, just one Mick Foley Darby Allin match. Yeah, I love him, man, and it's like I even in WWE when I produced like maybe one promo with him was like I remember like a backstage with him and Sheamus and Claudio. And this is the backstage where Mick they had like a best of 7 series, and which was like a hard position to put Claudio and Sheamus in. Like they weren't like white hot at the time, and a best of 7 series, it's like, yo, that's hard. It's hard to go like, hey, we're gonna go.
I think that's when they formed the bar afterwards. There was a after.
Right, yeah. And Mick cut this when he like cut this promo backstage going, you and you, best of 7 series. I remember him, like, he came up to me with this idea. He's like, hey, I thought about this. And the way he brought himself, his soul, like Mick Foley, the way he brought himself into this promo, I remember just thinking, yes, this is my guy here. And it is so good. And it was a great start to something that I don't think fans were like too excited about. And Mick really gave it a little like extra oomph to give us some excitement. And then Claudio and Sheamus ended up doing fucking awesome in that. Again, that was a tough spot. Neither of those guys were like had like a ton of like buzz or a ton of like people weren't like the fans didn't seem like too excited about those guys. And we put them together for 7 matches, and they fucking hit a home run, man.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of praise there, and I think maybe he'll probably come out of retirement. Just like how AJ Styles will possibly come out of retirement just for one match, probably just with his sons. You know, since his son's basically wrestling now.
I saw that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. You know, like retirement in wrestling is a fairly relative thing.
Yeah.
So I think Mick's is he about 60 now? Something like that.
Yeah. Late 50s, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's getting a little harder to clear guys, I think, to wrestle as well. You know, back in the day, the professional wrestling business was the Wild West, and it's just not anymore. It's not the Wild West. Like people have actual safety concerns about the well-being of other human beings, which is great. But that might, I don't know Mick's current health and if someone will clear him or not. So
yeah,
it'd be great if
I mean,
if he could get
I mean,
cleared and he's up to it, like I'm
I
not gonna
mean,
complain about another Mick Foley
I
match.
mean, who knows? I mean, there's wrestlers out there that are older than him, like Bushwhacker Luke, the Warlord. I think Chris Jericho's like slightly younger than him, but he's still wrestling wrestling on AEW. He just had a
Billy
match with.
Gunn's 62, and I just saw him this past weekend, and he looks better than ever. God bless him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like like that's crazy though.
yeah, yeah.
They're really crazy. Like him being in the physique that he is with
Yeah,
Billy
I
Gunn.
was there on it was his 60th birthday, and it was dynamite. And the main event was him and the Acclaimed versus the Bang Bang Gang. Where I forget if it was Juice or Jay, and then Billy's
The
two sons.
Gun,
Yeah,
yeah,
Colton.
Austin Colton.
Yeah. And it was just so cool to watch going, look, it's like the two kids he mentored and his two sons on his 60th birthday, main eventing this TV show. It's like, that's pretty cool, man. You don't get those
Yeah.
sort of like energies that all line up and converge in such a beautiful way too often. So that was good.
Well, throughout your career, you along with Billy Gunn, you've made a lot of personal relationship with your colleagues beyond professional. You got to know them probably on a personal level. You know, I can imagine that's like a camaraderie type thing with all the wrestlers, at least the majority of them. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like
I mean, there definitely was. That's one of the things that going behind the scenes and work on the office really changed. In the first years of my career, it's like me and the boys. I'm one of the boys, and then in 2015, I go into the office at WWE, and I'm still like, but I'm like, I was just a wrestler, and I'm friends with these wrestlers, and it took me a while to really settle in. Maybe probably even after WWE. It was probably a couple years into TNA that I was just like, right around the time I stopped being like an independent wrestler every weekend, so around 2020. It's like at some point, not 2019 through 2020, I'm like, no, I'm an office guy. Like that's what I'm office, and there's benefits to that, but there's also like, yeah, like the camaraderie of being one of the boys. I don't quite have
yeah.
that anymore. Yeah.
So you see yourself more like a behind the scenes guy than an actual in ring guy.
I mean, 100%. Yeah.
That's
I mean,
me.
the last the last
Which I
the last match I wrestled was back in May. I'm not sure I'm going to do another one or not. Maybe. But I think the days of me like just trying to get booked for fun and trying to do shows here and there just for a good time, I think those days are over. So yeah,
I
I'm
see.
office, and I've been office for a while.
Well, throughout that time that you wanted to transition into being behind the scenes, that you got into wrestle, got to work with quite a lot of people in the ring throughout your entire career. I could, if you want me to, I could name some of them that you worked with in the ring or out backstage, and you could tell me if like how the relationship is.
Sure.
If you got that, okay. Let's start with Nigel McGuinness.
I love Nigel. Nigel's one of the few people that I stay in contact with. That we were AW's just in Detroit. Nigel's one of the few people
He's
that like, yeah, Nigel
yeah,
McGuinness. Yeah, it's one of the few
he's
people.
working on Collision.
Yep, yep, and he does commentary there. So we met up on one of the days for breakfast. Like he's one of the people I go out of my way to see, and we still talk. And I love him. He's a hard worker. He's a great guy.
Okay, how about let's see here, Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan. Wow. I wrestled Kevin Sullivan one time. Me and a guy from the Midwest named Eric Freedom wrestled him and Crowbar in a match for Ed Farhat Jr., the Sheik's son. He had a company 20 some years ago in Michigan. And so I wrestled Kevin one time. I was also like kind of around him for the company called AWWL, All World Wrestling League. So Kevin was around there a lot. And he was always helpful. One time he told me and Chris Sabin, he's like, that was the best match I've seen in 20 years. He's like, but your punches are shit. And actually, it's true. My punches were shit. And it was when Kevin Sullivan said that. And he's like, practice punching a wall. You know, if you can punch a wall and make it look good but not hurt your hand, you've got a good punch. And that's that actually that is when my punches started getting good. Kevin Sullivan also recommended that I change my name. I was doing the mini Bruiser Brody thing, and I had Huss on my trunks, and I go Huss, Huss. And Kevin Sullivan was like, that should be your name. Your name should just be Huss. And I get what he was saying, because I don't like disagree. What I mean by that is, like, I'm not saying it needed to be Huss, but like for what I was doing and the character I was, it's like a snappy one word name would have been better. Sandman told me the same thing. He's like, you need a one word name like Sting or Raven. And I agree. Like, if I could go back in 2005, I would have changed my name to just Princess. And that would have been my name. I would have wrestled as Princess, like Prince, Princess, or The Princess, one of those two. And I also produced one of my favorite things I've ever done in wrestling, Undead Realm 2 in Impact. We cast Kevin Sullivan as the character of the devil in this thing. So in the Death of Alley, in the lore of TNA in the Undead Realm, the devil is Kevin Sullivan. So God bless him.
Jack Evans.
Jack was very talented. You know, he was not particularly, I think, like well trained or something like early, you know, because I knew Jack like when he first came in Ring of Honor, it was like 03, and he was just like super athletic, but didn't have much like wrestling fundamentals, but really talented, stuck with it, became big star, certainly in Mexico, and did well here in the States. And I always thought Jack was super talented. And a good guy. I liked Jack. We got along.
Okay, how about here's this. You said you're not really that tough a tea of the death with the death match wrestling. Ian Rotten, IWA Mid South promoter.
You know, Ian Rotten, I'll always have a place in my heart for him. He was one of the first promoters to really like see something in me and take the time to try to foster the talent that he saw. You know, back in 2003, you know, he did a lot for me, and gave me a forum in which to really hone my craft, you know. And I did it Mid-South. There was like just no restrictions. Like time, you know, time, who cares? My entrance could take 20 minutes, you know. So we just had this like blank canvas to paint on. And it's really like learning to paint on that canvas is a lot of what helped me understand learn how to be a pro wrestler. So I'll always have a place in my heart for Ian. You know, I just wish he could tell the truth. That's all.
CM Punk.
CM Punk was a bully to me when I first broke into the business, and I was like 16. He was a bully. He was just like a real bully, and tried to justify it by saying I was an idiot, and like maybe I was. I'm sure I was to some degree. So when I first knew Punk, the relationship was contentious, and I might have been an idiot, but he was a bully. And in 2002, 2003, when he started to see that like I was out there like hustling, like I was doing it, you know, he saw me and Alex Shelley at IW Mid-South. It was Punk that came to me to go, hey, give me a tape of you and Shelley. I'll give it to Gabe for ROH. So Punk like helped me get into ROH. After Punk got in WWE, he would always take my calls, always take my texts. You know, we don't talk anymore. You know, I'm not, you know, Punk and I don't have any sort of relationship now. But I'm still like the people that were around back in the, you know, because Punk and I broke in like around the same time, around the same area. So like I anytime I see somebody from those days, like there's a soft spot in my heart for them. It's like, yeah, you know, the same sort of like weird local guys that I know from 25 years ago, and you know, same general origins.
Tracy Smothers.
I love Tracy, dude. Tracy's the best. Yeah, he was just the man. Tracy was the man. I wrestled him a couple times. He was always super gracious. There was something I wanted to say about him. He was a great dude. He was one of these veterans that you had some veterans that look at the young guys and just go, oh, these guys, they're doing this and that and this and that. Tracy Smothers saw what the young guys were doing and didn't like put it down, didn't put his thumb on it. Similar like William Regal, I felt the same way too. It's like, even though these guys came from a different era, they saw what was going on. They go, okay, how do I, how can I appreciate the evolution of wrestling while still grounding it in the fundamentals? And Tracy was like that. And he was a maniac, and he was awesome. And I remember one show we did together in Indiana somewhere, and he showed up late to the show. And he's like, Jimmy, man, you gonna manage me tonight? And I go, yeah, Tracy, I'll manage you. And I was, yeah, man, go out there and cut a promo. And so he's like stretching. He's like stretching backstage, like just stall for time. And I'm out there talking like forever. And I'm like, where is he? And I cut through him, like run to the back. I'm like, Tracy, what's going on? And he's just stretching. He's stretching backstage. There's a drinking fountain, like in grade school. He's like stretching on, and he like pulls the whole thing out of the wall. I'm like, Tracy, I think we got to go back out there. We got to go out there. He's like, all right, man, I'll be out there. You guys go out there and introduce me. And so yeah, I managed Tracy for this match. At some point, someone comes to the back and tells me ringside. He goes, "Hey, tell him to go home." I tell Tracy, they say go 10 more minutes. He was the man. He was the best.
Brody Lee.
Brody Lee was in. So we were together in Ring of Honor in the Age of the Fall, like towards the end of it, sort of in the dying days of the Age of the Fall. Brody Lee, the last whatever that was, like 8 months he was there, and he was good, man. Brody was good. He was good in WWE. He was good in AEW. He was a good dude. Yeah, I'm glad I got to work with him. There's a great picture of like me, him, Joey Mercury, Seth Rollins backstage at WWE in 2014, like all these old Age of the Fall guys backstage at WWE. So.
Tony Mamaluke.
Tony Mamaluke. Wow, these are not the names I would expect to ask about. But Tony Mamaluke was. So the very first Ring of Honor match I had was me, Alex Shelley, BJ Whitmer, and it was scheduled to be, the fourth person was scheduled to be Johnny Cashmere, half of the Backseat Boys.
With Trent Acid.
Yep, Trent Acid partner. And for whatever reason, the day of the show, Johnny was out and Tony Mamaluke was in. So I'm 19, Alex Shelley's like 20, and we're just nervous being at ROH. And Tony Mamaluke was like super cool and like did whatever we wanted, like sold for us, took our moves, whatever, which was a big deal to us at the time. So I'll always have love in my heart for Tony Mamaluke for like doing this 19-year-old kid a favor.
Okay. How about Dan Severn?
Wow. These are all people I wrestled and all people like I had. It's like they aren't like the main characters in my career, but yeah, Dan Severn and I had a feud in. He had a company here in Michigan, in Coldwater, called Price of Glory, and he and I had a feud there. We also had we wrestled one time at an Indy in Michigan, and right before we went out there, the top rope broke, and someone comes running to the back. They go, "Hey, do you want us to move the bottom rope to the middle or to the top rope?" And Dan and I just like look at each other and we just go, "Nah, I think we don't need a top rope." And like he would whip me off of hitting the ropes like Rey Mysterio hitting the middle rope. But yeah, we had a feud in for his company in Coldwater, Michigan, over his Ultimate 2 championship. It's so fun. Like, what's fun about my career is like this is around the same time I'm doing like the Battle of Lacey and things like that, like on ROH TV or ROH whatever their DVDs, like the Battle of Lacey. But like while that's happening on all these like indies all around the country, I'm doing all sorts of other weird stuff. Like people know my Ring of Honor stuff, but there's a bunch of stuff I have that only really exists in the memory of the fans that were there at that time. And so I'm doing like a feud with Dan Severn over the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which I steal from him, and I start defending against people doing like fake MMA fights. And yeah, man, Dan was a good dude. We had fun together.
Let's see here. What else we can pull out of our ass? How about How about let's switch it up and say Sunny Kiss?
I don't know Sonny too well. The first time I saw him, I want to say, I think it was Delirious. I was working for WWE, I think, and Delirious sent me a video of his. I saw like a highlight reel. I thought he was mega talented, but that's really all I know of Sonny Kiss.
Okay. All right, Sammy Callahan.
I love Sammy. He just started with Maple Leaf Pro, which I'm happy about. Sammy, when I got fired from WWE, I know Sammy was since before that. The Indies from almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But when I
Yeah.
got fired from WWE, Sammy was like the one guy who helped me navigate certain things and like helped me get booked for certain things. And like, I've got a lot of love for Sammy. Like he believed in me at different points when it felt to me that like almost no one else did. That's true. And like, I have a lot of love for Sammy for that.
Ace Steel.
Boy, yeah, Ace. These names. I mean, like, yeah, I've known Ace for forever. When I was 17, me and Frankie the Face, my buddy who helped train me, like went like one day to the Steel Domain to Chicago, where him and Danny Dominion were training people, because that was like the place to be. It's where Punk came on. It's where Cabana came on. It was like the hot wrestling school in Chicago. So I've known Ace since man, I was a teenager, and Ace was always good to me. Um, we had a few matches together. We worked across the ring from each other on the same teams as him and ROH at different points. And Ace is always very gracious. Whenever I see him, I'm always very happy to see Ace.
All right. How about Colin Delaney?
Boy, I mean, I know Colin. I forget like where we like were working together because I know him enough. I was happy for him when he went to WWE, when he was in the ECW, and he kind of had that little role in ECW. Yeah, we used to run each other. I think probably in the Indies. He was like I think he was like a Buffalo guy, an upstate New York guy, and I would come into those areas, and you come into the area I'm in a bit.
I just had him on the show, and he works for NWA. Saul Renaro.
Yeah, I've known Sal for a long time too. BJ Whit. Oh yeah, that's right. BJ Whitmer and I dropped the tag team titles in ROH to him and Tony Mamaluke. Yeah, on the day that Joe and Kabashi. Yeah, Sal's a great dude. Yeah, we wrestled the TPI 2003 as well, maybe 4, so maybe both. Yeah, man, I always like Sal.
All right. Let's see. Um, Shane Taylor.
I like Shane. So I mean, I like. Listen to me. Oh yeah, he's good. I like him.
Wow.
So in September of 2003, AEW had whatever collision in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at the Van Dalen Arena, which is my hometown. It's like the arena that I grew up like watching wrestling in, basically. And Tony asked me if I wanted to do a match for ROH at the Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids. And I said yes. And he's like, "Who do you want to work with?" And I looked at the roster and who was available, and I was like, "Yeah, give me Shane Taylor. I want to wrestle Shane Taylor, because Shane Taylor, I saw him as like." I saw his work. I was like, "Yo, this guy is gonna try to get over. Like, he's bigger than me. He's gonna be a heel. Like, I can sell for him, and it's gonna look impressive when I knock him down. The one time I'm gonna knock him down, and he's not gonna try to get over on me or do something more impressive than me as a heel and outshine the baby face." I was like, "Yo, this like give me Shane Taylor," and he did great, man. Like the reason I wanted to wrestle Shane Taylor, like that match, like went. That was like it ended up. He ended up being the right wrestler for that match. A heel that could beat me up, get heat on me, not try to outshine me, and sell for me at the certain times was appropriate.
Here's this one. I think you may have gotten in a relationship with him when you were a writer. Corey Graves.
Well, I knew him more before WWE as Sterling James Keenan. Like he we first met probably in Pittsburgh in '03 for Norm Connors. So me and Shelly, we would crash at his place sometimes in Pittsburgh. We were out there. We wrestled each other in England, in like '07. So I've known him for a long time. Yeah, he's what a rock star. Great dude.
All right, let's see. How about Joey Janela?
Yeah, I wrestled Joey a few times after WWE. It was a match that's I think some people wanted to see because I think we did it a few times. And he's somebody that look, I love like independent wrestling, and like Joey Janela is like he's like one of like the king of the indies. Like I appreciate that. I appreciate a guy who like hustled and like worked hard and tried to be creative and think outside the box. Obviously him and like with GCW, really like he's got a interesting mind for like what's hot and what will work and what sort of like innovative stuff. Joey Janela's Spring Break, like that was at least
Yeah,
10 years ago, maybe it still is, was like a destination for WrestleMania week events.
I know this may have been just one match, but Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, I mean but that's if I were to say what was the most like special match of my career, it's probably that match with Eddie. And it's a 4-minute match, and I got in no offense, but it's really what I learned from him as like a human being. I was 21 years old, and I had never been on WWE TV. He was like probably the best wrestler in the world, or right up there as the
Yeah.
best wrestler in the world at that point. He had been WWE champion. He was extremely well respected, and it was my job to beat up by him and put him over. And he was so gracious with me. He thanked me profusely. He apologized to me that I'm sorry, this match needs to be 100% me. And he said, God willing, we'll work together again under better circumstances. He was so gracious to me, and it taught me that it doesn't matter where somebody is in the wrestling business, in this like sort of fake wrestling business hierarchy. You always like it doesn't make you, it doesn't give you the right to treat someone else like a piece of shit. And I'm not sure I always did that, but learning that lesson from Eddie Guerrero kept me in check. Like it kept me from potentially becoming a monster throughout my life. So I love Eddie Guerrero. He has such a special place in my heart.
I brought this him up, but in regards to your actual relationship, AJ Styles.
I mean, I've known AJ for a lot of years, 2002, 2003. He was always good to me. We had like one match one time in '04. It wasn't a particularly long match. It was maybe like a 5-minute match that ended in Raven running in and rolled into a match with me and Raven. But AJ's always been cool with me. In WWE, I was his writer as soon as he came in. So AJ and I worked together for the whole time that I was, for whatever that year and a half or so that he and I were both in WWE together. And he was always cool, man. And he's obviously one of the most talented performers of all time.
Okay, how about I know there's this one, Joey Legend.
Yeah, you're getting these names, man. I love Joe Legend. Joe Legend was on. He wrestled on the second show I was ever on as a referee. I thought he looked like a pro to me. He looked like, compared to everybody else, I was like, this guy is like the guy. And then slightly later on in my career, I worked with me, him, and Saban had a 3-way one time in Pittsburgh in like '04. I had a singles match with him like later on in my career too, in like 2017 or 18 or 19 or something like that. Extremely talented wrestler.
Okay, how about Steve Corino?
Big Steve Carino fan as a kid in watching him in ECW. I was very grateful I got to work with him later on in my career. The first time wrestling was like a 6-man tag. I was probably like 20, something like that. I broke Steve's nose accidentally with a big pole. I broke his nose, and I bought him a chocolate cake and some weed the next day to apologize. So, Steve's good, great man.
Josh Alexander.
Extremely talented. Happy for him for the success he has right now. I work with him at MLP now. Just seeing his mind, his understanding, his execution of wrestling develop into what it has. It was a pleasure to watch. I really watched it develop in TNA. I knew him before that, obviously. And I've known all these guys basically since they first started. So, but he's a premier performer now.
What are you doing with your mother?
Sorry, hold on for 1 second, Jimmy. 1 second. All right. I I apologize, man.
Yep.
I apologize. Okay, Tony DeVito.
He was in the Carnage crew that BJ and I wrestled a couple times. He was always good. He was always good to me. I was happy. BJ and I dropped the tag team titles to him and HC Logan. I was happy to be able to do that for them.
That's the question.
Be the guys to take the fall when they got the tag team titles, and they dropped it back to us. But I was happy to do that.
Colt Cabana.
I mean, I've known Colt since I was 15. Colt's a legend. Like I don't think people get Colt Cabana as a legend. Like Colt Cabana is like, as far as I'm concerned, and maybe I'm wrong, but Colt Cabana, as far as I'm concerned, is like the first like independent wrestler. Like really, like he was the guy that was like, "Yo, independent wrestling can be a business. You don't need to go anywhere else." And Colt got the merchandising game, the podcasting game, and just like knew how to like make independent wrestling a business. I mean that was this guy was making, I think he got rich. I don't know, rich enough being like an independent wrestler. Like that guy, like he created the model for like the Young Bucks followed to like, and everybody followed. Really, but I say the Young Bucks because like the Young Bucks are legends too. Like the effect that these guys have on the wrestling business, have had in the wrestling business, like can't be understated. Like CM Punk's a bigger star than Colt Cabana, but I think Colt Cabana's had more of an actual like change in the wrestling business than CM Punk. And I know that might be a bold move or a bold thing for me to say. But as far as I can see, it's like what Colt Cabana did, like created the blueprint for independent wrestlers.
Just gonna before I finish, I know there was another guest that was gonna come on later on. There's this wrestler named Monsta Mack, and I was I don't know if you've heard of his name.
Yeah.
He was the CCW. I think he was at CCW, all those the deathmatch promotions or other promotions
he was
that
in ROH
have
too.
deathmatch.
He was in ROH.
Yeah.
Him and Dan Moffat,
Yeah,
the hit squad there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking if he wanted to come, like, drop in, and he said, "No, that's fine. Tell him I said hi." I'm just like, I was just,
Monsta Mack's a
I
good
just
dude.
like,
I mean, I haven't
I'm not
never worked together like too closely, but we run into each other. Again, I was
okay.
a teenager,
I know.
20 some years ago.
Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure it's not a name that you don't recognize. It's I know it's like a like a. I guess the camaraderie goes a long way in this business, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
And
look,
continues to
I know most people in the wrestling business or I did know basically, I don't say like everybody in the wrestling business, but I knew like a lot of people, and I still know a lot of people, but there's like a new crop of guys now that I just don't know. Like the independent wrestlers now over the last like whatever 8 years, I don't know. The people that started in WWE in the last 5 years, I don't know. I don't have any relationship with them, but like a lot of people. I mean, it's a small business,
Okay.
so.
Okay. I'll just ask you one more question. I'll let you be on your very way. My question is, after 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 you eventually, you said you were basically skeptical of your in-ring career and you want to be more behind the scenes office guy, like you just stated. What what would you like to do when you actually officially, hang up your boots and call it a day in the ring?
I mean, like I said, I don't know if it'll ever be like, oh, or like a retirement. It's just I had a match in May, and I don't know if I'm gonna have another one. Like
Uh,
again, I might as a favor, or I might like for like a personal reason. But as far as like the need for me to go out and be a wrestler, like I feel
uh,
complete with that. Like I feel complete in my life having done what I've done in the ring, and I more or less think I feel complete with working backstage as well. Like it like I'm not saying I'm leaving the wrestling business 100%, but if over the next year I just sort of fade off, like that wouldn't surprise me.
okay. I appreciate you coming on, Jimmy Jacobs. I loved that you heard the wisdom and the stories that you shared. There's definitely a pleasure. It's an honor to have you on. I'm heavily honored.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. Thanks for thinking of me after all these years of in my life. It's nice to have someone at least remember me. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. You have a good day now,
All right,
Jimmy.
Kyle, take care.
All right. All right. Well, that was Jimmy Jacobs, jumping Jimmy Jacobs. He Ring of Honor alumni, and he basically was there quite a long time, or on and off, and he said he wants to be an office guy. That's probably more power to him, obviously. Prefer to be behind the stage, behind the scenes and stuff. But there's one person that we have left to be on the show before we wrap it up with the guests and stuff. It is a person that has made his way, throughout the wrestling business. He did appear on ROH. He was in GCW, SWF, New York Wrestling Connection, CZW, and in a promotion known as Jersey All Pro Wrestling. He's I've only heard of it because of Grimm's Toy Show. Because he works with SWF. I think he mentioned Jersey All Pro Wrestling. I think Jake Cage's father was a member there, or was a big deal in JAPW. But he's honestly, I could say this guy, Monsta Mack, is a big dude. He's like he's a man that you don't want to be messed with, honestly, in the ring. It's it's just crazy. All these wrestlers come in big shape, all shapes and sizes, and all different types. It's like the chemical X in wrestling, and there's just sprouts all these different styles. Sure, maybe deathmatch wrestling, or if it's catch as can wrestling, or comedy wrestling, or hardcore wrestling like ECW, or just maybe like all these types of wrestlers. Oh, I should have asked Danhausen. I should have asked Jimmy Jacobs about Danhausen, but you know what? I could have asked, but you know what? I could have asked something about Joey Legend too, about how was his name. But you know what? Life is life, and I can't really change it. But you know what? There's nothing that we can change about this person who's I'm about to introduce. The man that has been around the independent scene, the man who's been in JAPW, Jersey All Pro Wrestling, CZW, and the Cup of Coffee in Ring of Honor. And I'm going to please introduce the man, Monsta Mack. And I appreciate you coming on, Monsta.
What's going on, Kyle? How's everything going?
No problem. I know. I just notified you that that Jimmy Jacobs was just on. I gave you the opportunity to kind of join the
Give me his
conversation.
time.
And
Jimmy's a cool cat, and we've always had a good time whenever we're around each other. I like giving everybody their own time, though.
Oh, okay. I respect that. I really do.
Mhm.
So how are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Just to clear the record, I started Ring of Honor. I don't care what anybody says. Me, Moff, Christopher Street, and Allison Danger were the very first match in Ring of Honor history. And a lot of times, for various reasons, and listen, I understand the reasons, they like to say that Jay Briscoe and Red were the first match. They were the first announced match, but we were the first match on the show live and on the DVD. So,
Wow.
yeah. And it's pretty cool because Ring of Honor celebrating 25 years next year. So I don't know. Nobody's hit me up. I know nobody's hit up Mop, but hopefully somebody hits us up because it'd be very cool to be a part of 25th year celebration for Ring of Honor. But, we'll just throw that out there in the ether, as they like to say.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely honored to have you on.
Thank you.
So let's dig your toe. Let's just know what you're saying that you were on the first ever Ring of Honor show.
Mm-hmm.
What was the Ring of Honor atmosphere like, and what was it like the locker room, and like how it was when you were there?
So at the time, ECW and WCW, two places that the Hit Squad, Moff, and myself, Danny Moff, and myself were trying to be a part of, had closed down. And on the Indies, you either had the Indies or WWE at the time, WWF. And so we tried with the WWF and spoke with Kevin Kelly about trying to get on. And to be honest, they weren't trying to have us because we were, short, fat guys, as they put it. And so we had a chip on our shoulder. But on the Indies, we were tearing it up. We were Red, the States, Divide, Christopher Street, Homicide, Key, a bunch of guys on the East Coast who all were in the same position. We were all talented. We all could have been. And it just so happened that Ring of Honor opens up. We're guys who come around all the time and film us on the Indies, and they liked what they saw of us, and they were in the mindset of, well, these guys would have been in ECW, they would have been in WCW. Let's try something. And they took the best talents from the East Coast and the West Coast, and all over the United States, and that's how Ring of Honor was born. So in that locker room, it was filled with a bunch of sharks, guys who wanted to tear it up, steal the show, be in the main event. And it was, for me, being a guy who played football, baseball, basketball, very competitive. I was chubby, but I worked out all the time. I ran all the time. I was very much in shape, and I was very athletic. So was Moff. So was all of us. And it was a very competitive area to be in. Healthy competitive, though. We pushed each other to be better and to be the best. And it was such a great atmosphere. And I was there for the first year. And it was just, everything about it was so great as long as it came down to being competitive. Once politics came in, that's where things really changed. But that's always, going to happen at wrestling. When it comes down to wrestling, putting on the show, we were great. Everybody was great. But once it becomes, well, I don't really see my guy doing this or my character doing that. That's when it becomes, a whole nother element that no longer is conducive to being competitive and athletic. But at that point, like I said, then guys like CM Punk, Cole Cabana, took over and just, took ROH to another level, thankfully. And people were noticing. So, it was kind of cool to be a part of something from the ground up. The fans in Philly were insane. I loved wrestling in front of them because they let you know right away if you did great, if you did bad, or whatever. And it was always an honor to work in front of them. I know it sounds corny because it's Ring of Honor, but it was always great to work in front of them. And, I just, those are some of the best memories that I have of my early career.
I see. There's a when you were starting out in your career, when you from before you even made it to Ring of Honor, you were when you got into the business and were training, you were trained by the legendary Homicide. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, what was it like when you were like training under his tutelage?
So, just to give a little backstory, the very first time I met Homicide, low key, low life Louie, Miss Mendoza from the Christopher Street, Buffy from the Christopher Street, Kevin Matthews from Wrestle Pro, a few other guys used to wrestle at this church, SAT, Red, Quiet Storm Divine, wrestle at this church in Brooklyn. That was ran by this guy who used to be an old enhancement talent for the WWE named Pedro Rodriguez. And, that was a part of Brooklyn that we all had family, we all grew up in. So we all had the same like street mentality in a way. And, we're there just, it was basically like backyard wrestling because nobody was trained. We had a ring, but it was indoors. So that was the only difference between what we were doing in the beginning versus backyard wrestling. And Low-Key and myself were cousins. We used to watch every sort of wrestling that you could imagine at the time. And we loved Japanese wrestling. So we were talking about All Japan, New Japan, and some of the wrestlers there. And it just so happens this guy walks in. He had on, pretty sure he had black fatigues on, if not jeans, black jeans, and these Timberland boots that were, the light brown Tims that everybody knows and rocks in New York City. And I looked down and they had, it looked like dried up blood. And I was like, oh. And he's like, hey, what's going on? My name is Homicide. Heard you guys talk about New Japan. And me and Low-Key introduced ourselves. And I asked him, I was like, what happened to your boots? Why do they got blood on them? You step in something? He was like, no, last night I wrestled for Jersey All Pro, and there was this guy named Flash Wheeler, and he pissed me off, so I kicked him in the back, and he bled all over my boots. I was like,
damn.
What? And he was like, but it's all good. It's all good. We're cool and whatever. We had beer after, and I was like, okay, sure. From there, out New Japan, and he was me and Low-Key were calling ourselves the Hit Squad. That was a high school name for a bunch of guys that I hung out with that we called ourselves after EPMD, famous rap group. And we called ourselves the Hit Squad. It was us and Mace Mendoza and Louie, and him and his old partner Mike Stone, rest in peace, and Jay Lover, they were called the Hit Squad. So Low-Key and I, we wrestled Homicide and Jay Lover like about a couple of months after. And that was kind of like our test. And from that point on, he took us under his wing, him and Lathon, the Tower of Torture, who was an amazing talent. And if you ever talk to Low Life Louie has a bunch of tapes of Lathon and could show you how awesome Lathon was. But they took us under their wing, and we would go to the church to train. And then eventually Bobby Lombardi, who ran the LIWF, ran the Doghouse. He opened up the Doghouse Training Center. And from there, it was on. We were there Monday through Thursday most of the time. Without going home, we'd find people's houses to shower in. And normally, we would train probably about 6 hours a day, give or take, depending on the day.
Right.
And with Homicide, he liked to make sure your cardio was up. So we would run, and you'd see people do drills. People would throw up. People would pass out from heat exhaustion. But it was awesome. Like, again, I came from football. I already knew, the training drills and, the running hard and going through the heat exhaustion. And it wasn't easy. But for someone like me, I already had kind of like a cheat code because I already went through football practice just 3 months before. And, it was pretty awesome for me. I would see, like Low-Key excel because he's just an animal like that. And I'd see other guys come through and just do well. And then I'd see those who, after like a day and a half, not sometimes even half a day, they would just like, nah, this ain't for me. And they would leave. And, it wasn't for everybody, but who did well with it, they all became something in the business, whether it's TV or independent or international. So it was pretty dope.
Well, that's a lot to unpack. But you said the LIWF Doghouse. I'm pretty sure is that the training facility? Is that the training grounds at LIWF?
Yep, there was two of them. There was yep. There was two of them. There was the original one that opened closer to Rego Park, I believe it was. And then there was, which is like Howard Beach, the beginning of Howard Beach. And then there was the other one on Jamaica Avenue, 940 Jamaica, that whenever you see any sort of documentary on LIWF or Homicide or whoever, it's actually visual. You could see it in one of the Spider-Man movies with the last Spider-Man, that he is sitting on his high school looking at the train, and it's right underneath the train.
Let's see. So okay, for a second I thought you were frozen. Their screen was frozen.
No,
I
can sit still.
Okay. It's okay. Why I asked that, because there was this wrestler that is wrestled in the Virginia independent scene here at VCW. The guy named the Greek God Papa Don. You ever heard of
Papa Don? Of course I know Papa Don. I've known Papa Don since the day he started training. I was there, and he had him and I share a tag team partner in the great Ed Havoc Toscano. He passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago, but Jimmy and Havoc were known as, they were a great tag team. I love Papa Don. He's one of the guys that, I think that he should have been on TV a long time ago. The man has an incredible physique, and he's a great talker. So, he really should be on everybody's radar.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to him. And why isn't he on WWE? At least to have a dark match on WWE television. Like, oh my God.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, sometimes, but sometimes it's not meant for everybody to be on that level for whatever reason. And I don't know what the reason is, but he's great.
Yeah, but then he told me about the time that he wrestled in the Garden in Madison Square Garden, and he did even if he didn't make the WWE, he did wrestle in the Garden. That's that's an honor for every pro wrestler.
Of course,
like one of the legendary stadiums. But so there's one wrestling company that you're kind of associated with, is the New Jersey All Pro Wrestling. It is a defunct company now. How I heard of it is this New Jersey wrestler who turned YouTuber, Grimm's Toy Show. I don't know. He kind of referenced it to this one of the owners, Fat Frank, who's the son, who was the father of this other wrestler, Jake Cage. He used to wrestle in the New Jersey area. Now he's on Twitch.
Yep.
But that's how I heard
Yeah.
from it. What I was asking, what can you tell me about Jersey All Pro Wrestling as a whole?
Jersey All Pro Wrestling started out as the creation of Fat Frank. It all came about when he met Pierre Pilger and Jeff Shapiro. Pierre ended up being the manager of the Hit Squad in JAP. He was Johnny D. And Jeff, he's someone that I'm very close to that I just saw last week, as it is. The three of them started running JAP together in Bayonne. And what they did was a lot of the talent at the time on the indies back in the mid to late 90s, a lot of talent was old TV talent or guys trying to be extras in this area, and very complacent. They were very happy with just doing simple matches, not trying to push any buttons. And what they were using as far as JP were guys who were trying to do more, guys that were trying to make a name for themselves. And there were guys like Homicide and Dom Montoya and Chino Martinez, Reckless Youth, that a lot of people remember his name. They used him a lot. Devin Stone got used a lot. But they were also trying to use TV talent like Doug Gilbert, Sid Vicious, and a few other guys that they brought along that wanted to work with the younger guys on the indies to teach them and get them to get a little rub off their name. So it was a hungrier place for like what they called the misfit wrestlers. And a lot of times, if you work for JP, a lot of other companies in the area would tell everyone, oh, if you work for JP, you don't really know how to wrestle, or you don't really know how to work, or whatever, you know. I know I've gotten told that people have talked about me that I've sold guns and drugs out of my bag. Yet, at the point, I never held a gun up until I was 30. So I was in my early 20s at this time. And my whole life, I've never done drugs. As you could tell, you know, I'm a little chubby and big, but I don't use steroids. I don't do recreational. Yeah. So it was just, you know, out of jealousy, right?
Yeah, it's like that's like the that's like what you just said. That's like locker room talk, kind of. It's like more like
of course,
like a rumor. Like just like, you know, some people are just like to either like to rib or just like, you know, talking straight out of their ass. It
wasn't ribbing. It was people who were jealous of, because we started to elevate JP, and you know, once guys like Homicide, the Hit Squad, Low Key, Christopher Street, Special K, Dixie and Dragon, Jay Lethal. Once the younger, hungrier talent that was really good started to come up, JP began to elevate. And pretty much with a combination of JP and Frank Goodman's USA Pro in Long Island, the Northeast indie scene became like a Shark Tank. And it was all guys who knew how to swim in deep waters and fend for themselves. And if you couldn't, you kind of had to go somewhere else to make a name for yourself. And you know, so JP led the movement that became Ring of Honor, and they were using all the young guys that in the first year of Ring of Honor that you saw, pretty much were all used by JP at least a year before Ring of Honor used them. So, you know, and then as the years progressed, they moved down to Rahway and had bigger and better shows. And around 2015, Fat Frank had unfortunately passed away. And Fat Frank was the heart and soul of Jersey All Pro. He literally did everything you could think of. He wrestled for it, he commentated, he promoted, he booked, advertised, he grabbed, any sponsor he could get, and did everything that he could to make JAP as successful as it was. And he passed away, unfortunately. And we tried for about 2.5 years after he passed away, but the soul was gone, and we just couldn't do anything. And that's where the company passed on. And like you said, Jake Cage is someone that I've known since he was a kid. I remember him being like a 5-year-old, 4-year-old boy running around the locker room with his friends. And when he became a man and got into wrestling, I got to wrestle him a couple of times, and it was fun being able to wrestle my friend's son. He's a good dude. I know he's big on Twitch, constantly gives reactions, especially to like wrestling and stuff like that. But I know that he had gained a big piece of fame through Grimm's Toy Show. I've also worked with Grimm a couple of times in the past, and that's pretty cool. But with JP, like I said, even though there were indies that are still running to this day, JP was a different animal in the Jersey scene. And it was a place to where if you came through, you definitely had to prove yourself. But once you did, you were good as gold there. And I definitely miss it. It was definitely my home.
Yeah, and I think after I think it was JAPW said went defunct. There was, I think, the one that came in its place. I think it was SWF, run by Rob Fury, who's the booker. I also know him through Grimm's Toy Show. He wrestles occasionally. He works with him. They both had a match. I think he got to wrestle quite a bit of his wrestlers, like Vincenzo, this guy named Jimmy Controversy, that Grimm likes to beat up a lot. Makes it, it's like a living rib. But what can you say about SWF and Rob Fury?
Sure. So when I was there at SWF, Magic and I had been teaming up for Rob, and we won the tag titles. I believe it was 3 times or 2. I forget exactly, because I know one of them was like a weird situation, but we won the tag titles a few times for SWF. And we got to wrestle guys like the Rep and a few other of his tag teams that he liked to use. With SWF, it was a lot of fun. It was a bunch of younger guys who, were just trying to gain some respect in the business, and they did that. And then eventually, a certain sect would break off and start to form Titan Championship Wrestling from SWF, and they became rivals for each other. But it was never anything personal on my end. I know some guys, they take the business a little too serious sometimes, and that happens. But with SWF and Titan, we always, would be parallel, side by side, and we did our best to grow Titan as big as we did. And but that all happens because of SWF putting us together in the first place.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Kind of real life can kind of mesh into this, so
it's all good.
Like how
it's all good.
It's meshed into wrestling,
Yep. Do you want to start over and ask that question again, and then I'll just answer?
No,
or you want to leave
fine.
it?
You're good. There was this guy, I think in New Jersey Pro Wrestling. There's this guy named Vince Series who I've actually gotten.
Mhm.
I believe that was through Grimm when Grimm first came up. He's a big dude. He's physique, man. I think he wrestled for SWF for quite a bit. Before he came down to wrestling, before he came down to wrestling, then it's down to Grimm's Toy Show years later. You know,
Yeah,
quite a lot of guys.
Vince is someone that I wanted to use big time because I had a little of like a booking say, I guess you could say, for Titan when we first started. And I wanted to use him in a more serious role, but his schedule couldn't keep him, on a strict calendar for us. But whenever I could, I use him because he is huge. He's in awesome shape. And he looks like someone that would beat the hell out of 90% of the audience. So I enjoyed having him around. He's a very funny guy. And him and I still talk all the time. So, he's someone that I definitely know a lot about.
Side effects include pancreas injury, gallbladder, the good thing about low blood sugar in people with diabetes, especially if you take medicines for it. Many prescribers experience vision changes or heart racing and breast. Side effects of nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems. Look at the lighter, honestly, with Medicare, eligible patients can now get removed with $50.
I'm sorry, man. Yeah,
Yeah, it's all right.
I apologize. But so but honestly, how so how's let me ask you, in regards to this, like, you said you wrestled Grimm quite a couple times, and you got to actually get in the ring with him and wrestle him. And what was your relationship like with Grimm, if you could tell me, if you can?
We never wrestled. But it was always just a cordial, like, hi and bye. We would talk a little bit in the locker room about wrestling, but most of the time, truth be told, I like to find my little corner in the locker room and sit by myself. And
Yeah.
if someone comes through, we talk. I'm never gonna be rude, but I just try to keep myself busy with my headphones on. You know what I mean?
Being productive. I'm just trying to be productive with my
Yes.
time in the locker room.
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, you know what? I feel like if you, I feel like if you, if I feel like that would be a good working relationship if that came in the past. If he came down to his backyard, his yard, he likes to talk to, like, a lot of the people in the locker room. Like, there's a lot of criticism about Grimm's Toy Show, about him, like, being a backyarder and just being unsafe in the ring. Like, he got shot on in was a Jersey Premier All Pro Wrestling. I think it was
Mhm.
Jersey. They told me by the stepdad, Rad Dad Rudley Delmon, who was a local wrestler in the New Jersey
Mhm.
embassy with
I know
the
Red
famous
Dead.
stepdad, was Wade
Mhm.
Kruger, like those
Yep.
two. Those they told the story about him being in the same, like, right behind the curtain when that all occurred with was it Brandon Jay Jay Bradley and Brandon Kirk. Those are the guys that literally shot him. Like, I just come into this. The reason why I was talking about Grimm, because I heard about Jersey All Pro Wrestling, like, starting all that, because they did this little Civil War thing where this parody WWE AEW, but this GTS versus AEWE. It's like Grimm's Toy Show. It's like it's Grimm's show. But
Mhm.
what I was trying to convey with that, there's um there's quite a lot of it to be said, because Grimm's Toy Show had a career before he had a ring and had a ring in his backyard. He used to, like, him and Vince used to go back. They both were trained by this guy named Iron Mike Sharp. I think they may have had some sort of training facility back in I don't think it was in New Jersey or not or whatever. Um if I may be wrong, and I don't know if I know you worked in the New Jersey independent scene, but I don't know if that's true or not. I know you're from.
Um, I was going to say Mike Sharp had a school where a lot of famous people wrestled, including some of my rivals, Charlie and Russ Haas. Um, he, for a long time, used to train a lot of guys in New Jersey. So it's a name that's definitely known by the New Jersey independents for that reason.
Okay. Just there's also another company that you wrestled for is that basically every like this one of the major independent wrestling promotions, Game Changer Wrestling, that you've gotten the chance to wrestle for them too. I believe they're up in upstate New York, where upstate New York where I believe where you're from, where I don't know, I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or anything,
Yeah.
But I think it's a wrestling company stationed in New York where people like Nick Gage and Matt Cardona used to wrestle, and quite a lot of a lot of independent wrestlers go in Game Changer Wrestling, like one of those major independent companies. So
Game
what?
used to be a company called JCW, which they own now. They run, but the original JCW eventually changed it to Game Changer. And if you look at the history books for Game Changer Wrestling, I hold the second longest time for being a tag team champion combined. Because I've held, when it was JCW going into GCW, I was tag team champs with Kyle the Beast. Then Moff and I became tag team champs. And it's something like about 1,000 days. I don't remember how many it was. I forgot. But I have a lot of history with GCW. And when it first started, all the way up until I lost the belts to Private Party, the AEW tag team champions. And that was pretty much it for me. But yeah, there was yep. And there's a lot of history with me in GCW. I didn't do any of the deathmatch stuff though.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, you've been to CZW quite a few times. Been Combat Zone Wrestling, which basically not like mainly, but definitely featured that deathmatch wrestling. You've gotten a chance. Have you ever gotten to wrestle a death match in CZW or elsewhere?
The closest I ever did was with Jeff Cannonball. We did Street Fight, and it was for H2O Wrestling, Matt Tremont's old company, where I challenged him for the title, but it wasn't really a death match, but we both bled. I've never been I've wrestled for all the major deathmatch companies, Big Japan, CZW, GCW, H2O. I don't like to bleed. For some reason, just it never. Right. But I like to brawl. I like to feud. I like to fight. And so
like the bare knuckle snug type wrestling.
Yeah, and I like to have a fight, and that I've done a bunch of times, but and that same kind of fighting appeals to the crowd that loves the death match. Not as much, because obviously they love to see a good bloodletting. But I like to watch Schlack. Schlack is one of my favorites. Him and I are cool. But when he does his deathmatch stuff, I like to watch it because it's crazy to see the kind of punishment he's willing to put himself through to win a match and put his opponent through. And I've seen Schlack have skin peeled off, and I've seen Nick Gage have skin peeled off. It's kind of rough, but if you have gotten accustomed to it and it's one of the coolest kinds of forms of wrestling to watch, because that these guys are literally giving their body to everything that they want in this ring. So I have a lot of respect for deathmatch guys. I wrestled Madman Pondo. I wrestled Necro Butcher, Two Tough Tony. A lot of deathmatch guys I've actually wrestled, but I've never done a deathmatch, and it's not something that is on my list of things to do.
It's not your cup of tea, but you kind of explored that like through other people that you were wrestling comrades with, wrestling comrades
Yep.
with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, when you were growing up, when you, I think was, let's just say you and your cousin Loki, which I'll get to him in a minute.
Mhm.
When you guys were growing up, if y'all were just like, you either lived together or just it was like you and your family, what were the wrestlers that you basically got, and then either is your favorite, and follow question, what was one of the people that literally said, you know what, how about I get in that? How about I train and get in that ring and want to be like him, wanted to pursue a career in pros?
So I grew up during what they call the golden era. That's the time where Hogan, Roddy Piper,
Yeah.
Mr. Wonderful, Bob Orton, Don Morocco, British Bulldogs. I
Yeah.
grew up during that time.
Yep.
And Loki's father, who was my uncle, he introduced me to wrestling. I know I had watched it a few times before, but then right after Hogan won the title in '84, that's when he really set me and Key off on, watching wrestling all the time. He was in the Coast Guard, so he would be gone. And what he would do is have us record, and he would catch up when he would come home, and we would watch wrestling with him. And it was awesome to see guys like Hulk Hogan. It was awesome to see guys, especially like Roddy Piper, Macho Man, just these bizarre characters talk to you and lead you into wanting more. And that's one of the lost arts of today. I feel like there's no one out there that I really want to see that I'm like, I need to watch more, short of Brock Lesnar, and Brock is gone. Roman Reigns used to be the must-watch guy, and I just don't feel him as much as I used to. But that's just personal preference, But
Of course.
growing up, Key and I, we lived 10 to 15 blocks away from each other. He lived on an army base. I lived just outside of it. And whether I was there on the weekends, he was at my house on the weekends, or we were at school during the week together, because we were always pretty much in the same classes together. We would be talking about wrestling. And there was like maybe 3 or 4 other guys that talked about wrestling in our school, because back then during the 80s, nobody really talked about wrestling like that. It was very rare to meet anybody who knew about the wrestlers like we did. And
Probably.
Yeah,
probably
it was
remember like Hulk Hogan and Andre. That's the only people that they probably knew
Well,
at the time. Maybe the most popular.
Even then, people didn't watch wrestling back then like that. So it was one of those things where like the people that we did find, we grew close to, because we always wanted to talk about wrestling. And that was like, oh man, that was so cool. But the guys, once we got older and started reading about different places, because back then there was no YouTube, there was no internet, so you had to read about everybody, or if you happen to catch a videotape. Once we found out through WCW about guys like Muda, Jushin Liger, Brian Pillman, excuse me, I'm just unplugging my phone so it doesn't blow up. But once we learned about the guys that went to New Japan a lot, we learned about Chris Benoit through Canada. We learned about, a whole mess of international talent. Chris Jericho, Lance Storm, then ECW happened. Like, things really picked up the pace, and we really started getting into the guys that would help develop our style. So for me, the guys that helped develop my style were Vader, a big dude who was agile, could move. I was doing moonsaults off of 30-foot mountains of snow and doing a moonsault and landing, and just not even really what I was doing, but I was just trying what I saw and it worked. And then Stan Hansen, who would clothesline everybody, Macho Man, because of his intensity. He was always someone that I always wanted to, do the moves. So I would go to the top rope all the time, even though I was a big guy. Scott Steiner, who, even though they were the Steiner brothers, he would later become Big Papa Pump. Scott Steiner, throughout the time of the Steiner brothers, was doing crazy things like the Steiner screwdriver, and he would do 450s. And it was like, man, this guy was so awesome, and look how jacked he is, And then guys like Too Cold Scorpio, who I'm cool with now as an adult, and it's insane that we hit each other up, and I'm like, man, that's Too Cold Scorpio. That's so cool, Just through the years of wrestling and becoming a peer and earning the respect, like I said before, we were hungry and we wanted to earn everybody's respect, and that I did. And I got to have guys like Vader watch my matches, tell me they love me, and we'd have a relationship. The Road Warriors, that I'm wearing their shirt right now, that was a birthday gift. There was a cover of the PWI, and I would text the Road Warriors, and I got to text Eddie Guerrero. And these are all guys that I loved watching and emulated in my early years of wrestling, that I was able to take something from them and use it, and it helped me. And, I got to thank them later on in life when I got to become closer to them, all of them. And, it's kind of cool that, guys like that are guys that I looked up to, and they became associates, So I've been very fortunate that way because of that. But I also have my own set of guys. I know you said you were going to talk about Loki in a second, but between Homicide, Mav, Key, like I said, Red, the Amazing Red, the SAT, and then a few younger guys that I'm cool with, all because of wrestling, I've been able to become a part of this society, a part of this brotherhood with a bunch of guys that are really cool, really great, really talented men who define their era, as well as women, because I know people like Sarah Del Rey, Mercedes Martinez, Awesome Kong. There's a lot of people that during that 90s, 2000 era that were blowing up, and I was there with them, and I got to be cool with all of them. So I'm very fortunate that way.
Well, so now we're gonna talk about your cousin Loki. So when I know I've heard like Loki is definitely an underrated talent. He definitely has a style of his own. He even got to be in WWE at one point in as Caval in NXT. And he even had a match again for the Intercontinental Championship against Dolph Ziggler. I'm pretty. Were you, when all that was happening when he was in WWE? Were you attending the WWE shows or the NXT shows when he while he's on the card or on the show on the segments?
So I've seen him wrestle twice for the WWE. But both of them were before he signed with the WWE. He wrestled on Jacked Metal, which was like their weekend squash match show. When Triple H came back, yes. When Triple H came back and announced that he was joining, he was going to wrestle in the Rumble in the Garden. That same night, he wrestled Christian. In my opinion, that was the best match of the night. That was in the first hour of the show before the live show even happened. They wrestled. You could find that on Jack Metal. I've also seen him wrestle a dark match during SmackDown one time where the Haas brothers also wrestled. But as far as during NXT stuff and during his actual WWE run, I wasn't there. But him and I talked. It was cool to see. Not only was he my boy, but he was my family. It was cool to see my family wrestle and represent our family on TV. NXT was something that, if you know anything about wrestling behind the scenes, he wasn't supposed to win. They didn't want him to win. They did everything they could to prevent him from winning, including almost firing him before the season was over. and we're told, the office was told, look, even if you fire him, he's so far ahead in the voting, because they did actual voting. He's so far ahead that he would still beat the winner by more than half. And Low Ki is one of the most talented wrestlers I've ever seen, I've ever wrestled. And it's crazy that he's my cousin. We're only about 6 months apart. Not even, I think about 4 months apart. I'm sorry. And, it's cool that we got to grow up the way that we did. We had great lives as kids growing up. We got to ride our bikes, got to go out, play sports, hang out with our friends. And it was pretty awesome. We did stuff. Sometimes we would leave at like 7 a.m, go ride our bikes all day until 6 o'clock, because we had to be home by 6:05 to watch WCW wrestling on TBS. And once it was done, we'd go out and hang out for a couple hours. And, like we did that all the time. And, got to experience a lot of the same things together. And I've always been very proud of my cousin and all his success. And it's like I said, it's cool that we got to do a lot of things, including be inducted into the JAPW Hall of Fame during the 20th anniversary together, along with Moff and Homicide. I know that was something that Fat Frank had wished before he passed. He wanted all 4 of us to be in together for the big anniversary show. And we held his wishes, and it was really cool. And then we got to wrestle each other in the cage later on that night. So it was kind of cool that all worked out that way. But yeah, my cousin definitely has his critics, definitely has people who speak more than what they know about him.
Yeah, and
I know that. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a definite, like, I'm gonna say, like, rumors or locker room talk about a rumor or dirt sheets that even that his behavior was kind of maybe because of his backstage behavior kind of affected his career. Like there was a little I watched a little iceberg that there was an event that he went to that he wrestled, and he was like, I guess he was kind of, the story goes, like he was in a tag match, I believe, and the match kind of he got pinned, and he thought that the booker was being like ribbing him or like having like taking revenge, and then he was like, I think it was a story about him being carried out by security staff. I think it was I don't know if it was CZW or not. I think it was one of those types of promotions. That's what I heard of.
Yeah, it was CZW, and what happened was one of the guys in the match had gotten hurt, and he was upset by that, and he was trying to make the finish work, but one guy was hurt, so they had to change everything around, and everything became a big mess. And, he was upset. A lot of people are like, "Oh, he had a tantrum." Didn't have a tantrum. He was upset about the guy who got hurt. He was upset about the match. He's very intense about his work. Very high intensity when it comes to being in the ring. And when you're someone like that, all it takes for one thing to go wrong, and you got to be able to control your emotions, which that day he didn't. But at the same time, he was also 21 years old, 20 years old. So, it's hard for someone that young to be in control of everything, but no excuses. He ended up getting carried out by security, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that went into it. And that was pretty much it for him running in CZW. So, but the one thing I will say about Low Ki is that highly professional when it comes to being a pro wrestler. He expects the best from you because that's what you expect from him. Everybody wants to wrestle Low Ki because they know that they're going to be better off from it. Nobody wants to wrestle Low Ki to just have a match and have fun. And if you look at all of what his name, all the stuff that comes with his name. Ring of Honor champion, championship titles in Japan, and, you know, all over the United States. He's someone that, you know, demands that respect from everyone for a reason. So if you show up and you're out of shape, or if you show up high and you show up late, or you show up to the match and you're like, oh, let's just, you know, if I mess up, it's not going to be a big thing. No, he's going to let you know that you screwed up. That's the way you handle it in the ring, right? But regardless of whatever it is that people think about Low Ki, you ask the majority of people who work with him or train with him, they'll say one of a couple of things. One, they had the best match with him of their career. Two, he showed them a bunch of stuff about wrestling that they didn't know before. Three, he was able to help break down some of the stuff that they're doing wrong and make them better. Or four, he was just an asshole to them. So either which way, you know, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but that's just how it is.
You know, whatever he is, well, whatever anybody says, he's still your cousin at the end of the day.
Yep.
It's, you know,
Yep.
yeah, not
Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys who talk about him, and there's one who's famous right now and talked a lot of crap about him, and he didn't do anything to him but give him good matches, and he still talked crap. So, you know, if I ever should see this guy and he talks crap, trust me, it'll be worth doing a night in jail for punching him in the face.
And that would be, I think that would be considered. Would that be considered taking liberties? Would that? Would that just be?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
No. Taking liberties is when you just beat someone to beat someone for whatever your personal reasons. Sometimes there's things called receipts where if someone hits you, you hit them back. That's more of a receipt.
Oh, okay. I know, you know, sometimes when you say like, you know, take a receipt or like, you know, taking liberties with somebody, it's like going like either shooting on them or just working a little stiffer to kind of like what, like you're doing something, you're fucking something up. You need to, you know, you need to correct what you're doing. You're fucking up. You need to fix it. Like that type of thing. That's why I kind of took, and sometimes it meshes with real life stuff when they, you know, like somebody botches a spot, like when Randy Orton was supposed to do an RKO, and Kofi Kingston was literally just on the ground trying to sell, was kind of botched it, and then he did an RKO anyway, and then he did stupid. I mean, I didn't say like whatever he's think of that. What I'm trying to say is. I was just confused about that term kind of saying, you know, taking.
Yeah.
I know, like, so I know it's now kind of minced with real life, but okay. I know he had the match against Dolph Ziggler. Your Low Ki had a match against Dolph Ziggler on a pay-per-view. I think it was Survivor Series when he was it was him and Dolph Ziggler, and apparently there was it was actually, I mean, I can say he's a great performer. Like, what I've heard. There was a spot in the match where he literally, he kicked Dolph Ziggler accidentally kicked Dolph Ziggler in like the side, in the face. I like, you know, when he does his inzaguris or his kicks. Do you remember watching that match when he was like at the paper? Did you like purchase the pay-per-view that he was on? Like, you know,
I was watching. Yep. Yep. I was watching, and if you watch, so his entire career, he's called that the title crush, and he does a cartwheel into a kick in the corner. His entire career, he's done that, and he's told everyone the same thing: stay in the corner. And for whatever reason, Dolph Ziggler came out, took 2 steps. Mid-kick, he can't adjust that. There's no one that can adjust that. So he's going to blast Dolph Ziggler in the face. Dolph Ziggler has said, I lost where I was at for the second. I got confused and I came out. I don't know why I came out, but I did. And when he did, low key kicked him in the face. So now it becomes low key is dangerous. He's reckless and is not. This is something that Dolph did, right? But it is what it is. Accidents happen.
Yeah. So let's move on to like throughout your entire career.
Mhm.
Throughout your independent scene, you wrestled quite a number of names, which you said you've wrestled your cousin at one point,
Mhm.
which I can imagine that could definitely be some sort of dream that y'all would have, like to actually got into wrestle each other, got in the business together, and just can't just like did wrestling moves on each other, or just maybe doing stuff on the fly to kind of make the match
Mhm.
more entertaining.
Yep.
But I'm gonna list some opponents that you faced throughout your career, and then you could tell me if it's a story or like how you are with them, how like the
Mhm.
relationship is, if it's professional
Sure.
or if personal. All right.
Sure.
Let's start with Mikey Whipwreck.
Mikey Whipwreck was an early instructor. He taught us a lot, me and Mav and Homicide, about the business and Key, because he had just come off ECW. And we had a bunch of great matches with him in Jersey All Pro and USA Pro. He was a lot of fun to wrestle in the ring. He's someone that's a funny guy and very smart for this business.
You mentioned the Haas brothers, Charlie and Russ Haas.
Those two, I was their tackling dummy for the first few months that we would train with them. And then eventually we would go on, the hit squad would go on to feud with the Haas brothers. And they were awesome guys to us. We looked at them as really good friends. And I know that a lot of the hit squad and Haas brother matches were sent to the WWE and they got hired off of it. So, which is pretty cool when you think
Yeah.
about it, that the WWE watched your stuff and someone got hired because they saw you work with them.
Yeah, Charlie Haas. I got to talk to him. It was said, he told me that the original plan, he was part of the world's greatest tag team with Shelton Benjamin and Kurt Angle. He said the original plan was to before with him, Russ, and Shelton and Kurt. That was the original plan before he passed away. They were brought
Yeah.
up in WWE. I guess they were both signed to the news company. And that was the original plan, but that didn't go.
Yeah.
That didn't come to fruition because it's hard, subject to change. That's a term that's definitely used a lot in the business. Anyway, how about, let's see, Amazing Red.
Amazing Red is definitely a friend. Him and I talk every few weeks. I always laugh because when people ask me about Red, I always say he's the heaviest little guy that I've ever wrestled. Very, very underratedly heavy, but an amazing talent, like his name says. He can do so many things, and I always liked working with him because when him and I would get together, we would always watch different kung fu movies, and we would see things in those movies and we try to do them in real life, and 99% of the time we did them in our match.
Oh, that's interesting. Taking martial arts and actually doing it in the ring.
Yep.
How about Matt Striker?
Striker was someone that when I was already making a name for myself at USA Pro and UCW, ICW, he was trying to get on. He was a Johnny Rod student. He was, a lot of time and my old pictures, see them and just me out. But he's someone that I was cool with for a very long time. And it's not that we're not cool now. We haven't spoken in a few years. But he was someone I always referred to as Pretty Boy we'd text each other. I'd be like, "What's up, pretty boy?" And he would answer back, "What up, handsome?" And he was someone that we wrestled a few times down in Philly for 3PW, and he was always a lot of fun to wrestle. And he's a great person to talk to as well because he's very smart, very educated, and you got to learn a lot about just different stuff with him. And he's someone that I enjoyed traveling up and down the road. We spent a lot of times in cars together, and I do miss sometimes those car rides because he was just awesome to talk to and just enjoy being in the car with someone else for a few hours.
How about Little Guido?
Guido was before he joined ECW. Little Guido was what they call a shooter. He would be in the earliest forms of MMA matches in Japan, pancrase and stuff like that. And he knew how. I mean, he knows how to fight legit. He can beat up a lot of people, surprisingly, but he was always relaxed, always cool. He liked to joke around a little bit, and always showed me and Moff a lot of respect. There's one thing I could always say about the majority, if not all, of the ECW talent. We were fortunate because they showed us so much respect, and they treated us as equals, and we never had any ego rushes or anything like that with anybody. And it was kind of cool that we were fortunate like that.
Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan was awesome. He actually had told me he watched some of my stuff before, and he was naming matches and naming spots that we did in those. And he was discussing and breaking down what he liked about everything. He was like, "Man, it's so intelligent that you were able to pull this off." And I could tell who was in charge, and just talk to me about my stuff. And I'm just like, "But like, you're Kevin Sullivan. This is so cool." Very awesome in the ring to work with. We wrestled each other, I think, about 3 times, give or take, and every single time I got to learn something from him, and he complimented me on my work every single time, to where the last match was the match that we had with Terry Funk as a special guest ref, and we barely called anything. We just had fun, and afterwards Terry was like, "Man, that was like old times," and it was so cool to be part of that club with them.
That's definitely high praise from one of the most extreme wrestlers in all wrestling.
Yep.
I can tell. What about? Let's see what we have here. How about? There's a lot of names here with me. Billy Gunn.
Yeah. Billy Gunn is someone that you don't realize how big he is until you share the ring with him. He is an absolute animal. And when I say that, I mean, not even for someone his age, but just for a human being to be that big, that strong, that fast, and be that agile is insane. Like, I felt like a baby wrestling him. And thankfully, I stayed with Road Dogg every time me and Havoc wrestled the New Age Outlaws. And Havoc, who was the taller guy, he's about 6'2", he would be in there with Billy Gunn. But Billy Gunn always complimented me on how I would set up for moves, and I was light, which for a big guy is a big compliment, because whenever anybody tells me that I'm light, it's like, I know I'm doing my job to make your job easier by being light on you when you go to pick me up. And not a lot of people, like I said, Red was heavy, but Red had a reason for it. But there's a lot of other people who don't know how to jump properly, set themselves up properly. And every time Billy Gunn would always say, "Man, you're so light. What are you made of? Helium?" So I got that.
Johnny Swinger.
I think Johnny Swinger, we were only in there one time for ICW. And it was with him and Simon Diamond. And didn't really, we called our match. He was kind of quiet. I think he was still a little hesitant as far as wrestling indie guys at the time. So, he just very easy match, very relaxed. Like I said, but nothing that stands out too much.
Jason Knight.
Jason Knight is someone I've known for a long time, since about '99. And when I used to go up there to Connecticut with Jay Lover, Homicide, Lathon, we would go up on Sundays to wrestle for certain companies in Connecticut. Jason was always around. And he would come down to the doghouse and he would train with us, do shows with us, always showed us so much respect and props. And he was someone that we learned a lot from. He showed us how to be professionals in the back. He showed us how to be professionals in the ring. And to this day, I recently saw him at ISPW earlier this year and gave me a big hug. And we talked for about 20 minutes about, all the stuff that we've gone through together. And I just told him, I was like, thank you for being one of the veterans in the beginning who let us be a part of this, because back then you had to go through trial and error. And sometimes even that, you didn't get the respect automatically of everyone. And he always gave us so much respect. And he's someone that really loved the business. So whatever love any of us show, it's through him showing us how to love the business properly.
Well, how about Michael Elgin?
Mike Elgin was a beast. I've been in the ring twice with Michael Elgin, and one time was with Brian Cage as his tag team partner. And Michael was so strong. It was ridiculous. Like, you look at Brian Cage and you're like, oh, that's all muscles right there. But you don't realize how strong and possibly stronger Michael Elgin was. But he was always, again, I used him for JAP when I was a booker. Very professional. We did a lot of things together as far as setting up matches and stuff like that. And we spent a lot of time beyond. Very funny guy. I always liked being in the ring with him. I always liked sharing the locker room with him. And he's someone that, I enjoyed watching him in New Japan and, all over the world do his thing, especially Ring of Honor. And he's someone that I would have loved to have spent more time in the ring with.
This is the one I just This is a person that I watched the match with you, with Rockin' Rebel.
Yes. So I say that, and I know that there's going to be people like, oh, boo, Steve. Rockin' Rebel is sort of like Chris Benoit in that up until his last day on Earth, there were people who loved him. And unfortunately, he, killed his wife and then killed himself. Whatever reason that happened, I don't know. I can't say. Up until that point, though, Rebel was someone that we were so cool that every year on my birthday, I had told him a story about how I wanted when we were kids, G.I. Joe had the aircraft carrier. It was a big toy. It was huge. Every year on my birthday, Rockin' Rebel would post on my Facebook and my MySpace, because that's how far back we went. Did you get your aircraft carrier yet? And I do miss that. We shared a lot of jokes together in the ring. We had a couple of good matches together in the ring. And he was someone that, again, I learned how to do things professionally in the back. And unfortunately, like I said, his last day on Earth will tarnish his memory for a lot of people. And it's sad to say, but it happens. Like I said, the same thing happened to Chris Benoit, and people just now, 20 years later, are starting to talk about Chris Benoit's wrestling without the absolute hate and disgust. And eventually, I'm sure it'll come that way for Rockin' Rebel, but for now, everybody has their feelings about him.
Justin Farino, Steve's son.
Oh, you mean Colby Carino? Because that's
Colby
Steve's
Carino.
son.
Yeah, I don't know why I put Justin Carino. I
I
think
wrestled.
that-
I wrestled Justin. We wrestled in 2017. The Heavenly Bodies wrestled the Hit Squad WrestleMania weekend for WrestlePro down in Florida. Justin, I'll give my thoughts on both. Justin, great look, great athlete. You know, he definitely is another one like Papa Don, should be on TV. I just feel though that he needs like that really good, heavy feud. Every great wrestler is great because they have a great feud with someone else, and I think he needs that. With Colby Carino, I've known Colby since he was about 5, 6. His father used to bring him around shows all the time. He was always in all the locker rooms that we were at, and he's someone that I feel will be on TV within time. He's getting his life, in order with wrestling. I believe he just had a massive injury, so he's been out some time. But I'm very proud of Colby because I've seen him go up and down in wrestling, and he comes through. He shows a lot of respect, especially to the veterans, and that's because his father taught him well. And he's a great wrestler. Both Carinos are great wrestlers, so can't go wrong with either one.
Simon Diamond.
Simon Diamond is someone that I looked up to on the indies because he was part of the Ace Darling, Devon Storm era, Reckless Youth era of indie wrestling. And they were the measuring stick, those guys. And he was always good. We wrestled each other a few times, and always fun. He definitely knows his psychology. He knows his way around the ring. And now he knows his way around the back. He's someone that does a lot of stuff with NWA, and he makes his talent shine bright over there. So it's good that he's able to use his mind in a positive way for wrestling, because he's someone that all of us could learn from.
Peter Avalon.
You know what's so funny? Peter Avalon wrestled for AEW, and I saw him a few times. I knew him from the West Coast, but I didn't know him like that. And for Catalyst Wrestling, we got a chance to have a little feud with myself, Joker, and G's from CZW fame and NWA fame against Main Event from House of Glory and Peter Avalon. And even though I was already well into my 20-something year of the business, I still got to learn a lot from Peter, because he he showed me how I could use my patience better, use better psychology for certain things. Very smart, very funny, and very creative. And I got a lot of my creative juices to flow for Catalyst through Peter Avalon. So very fortunate for that.
Val Venus.
Val Venus, we only did, I think, a battle royal together. I think actually 2 battle royals, and he was always cool, honestly. After we wrestled is when the whole thing with him being political on social media really took a hit to his rep. But up until that point, he was a funny guy. He still is, I'm sure. But he always joked, and I was able to ask him some questions about when he was in Mexico and some of his favorite wrestling from Japan, and we got to trade stories. And he was very helpful in the back, especially with a lot of the younger guys. Very patient with us, and I would have loved to have had a one-on-one or even a tag match with him, because I feel like I would have been much better after. But he's someone that I always liked having in the locker room.
Here's somebody who's up in New York who was, I believe, a trainer in the New York's Creative Pro Wrestling, Brian Myers' school. Pat Buck, now part of AEW.
Pat Buck, we really didn't have much. We did have a series of matches around 2017, interactions in the ring, and a couple of matches, I believe. And so, truth be told, like I said, I didn't really know him. He was really more of a friend with Moff, and I knew Moff and him were really cool outside of the business. But it was more like, this is the Wrestle Pro guy. I'm the Jersey All Pro guy. Let's try to be cool. We maintain our professionalism. And when I did extra work for the WWE, he was there as part of the office for WWE, and we joked a little bit. And but outside of that, from what I've seen, got really old, really good fundamentals for wrestling. Is a good trainer for that reason. A lot of his students are really good because he teaches the basics well. And smart guy. We got to talk a little bit. Very good head for the business, and I'm pretty sure the same thing is going on with AEW. That's pretty much it for me with him.
Here's another big dude, Wrecking Ball Legursky.
Yes, Wrecking Ball. So, Wrecking Ball has told me several times that we had a series of matches about 5 years ago. And after the first one, I had told them, I was like, look, man, you got the size, you got the look, you got the charisma, you got the ability. I don't know where you feel with wrestling, but don't give up. Stick with it, because you got something. And I only say that to a few people that I believe actually have something. But I had given him that advice after one of our matches, and within about 2 months, give or take, he was with NWA full time, and he always thanked me. He said, for whatever it was, you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, but you gave me that pep talk, and it made me stick with it. I was ready to give up, but I believed in you and what you told me. And he's still with NWA. He just signed a contract with them, all these years later. But he's always someone that is like, a good face to see in a locker room. Him and I always joke around. We send each other messages all the time. Very funny guy, very lovable guy. He's kind of like my big Rottweiler puppy. You want to see him, and he's all happy to see you and give you hugs and kisses, and he's a great dude to be around.
Here's about Greg Valentine.
What's funny is I didn't even know I was going to wrestle Greg Valentine right away. We wrestled each other about 3 times. In the first match, I didn't know. It was like a last-minute replacement. I got to the building. They were like, we're gonna put you in the match with Greg. I was like, sure. And he's another one that he likes to hit hard. He's snug. And we were going at it. He saw I didn't back down. I didn't complain. Took everything. And after the match, he was like, man, I could use guys like you all the time, because it's a great match, And we wrestled each other. I think the last time was a tag team match. Was me and Chris Candido's brother Johnny against Valentine and King Kalua, another indie legend veteran name. And we had a good match. And afterwards, Greg thanked me, and thanked me for all the matches that we had worked, because it was like about a 2-month span. And that was pretty much it. But he made me laugh a few times, because he said stuff that I wasn't expecting. And easy peasy,
Here's one, Eddie Kingston.
Eddie Kingston is someone that used to come to shows at JP in Bayonne. there was a few guys during the time that trained at Kevin Knight's IWF, and because we were close relationship of distance, they would come check out JAP, and he loved the product. And I always used to tell him all the time, if he would have stuck around this area, we would all worked out together, because he was someone that fit in with the doghouse. He was someone that fit in with the JP mentality, and very funny guy, very emotional, but he loves wrestling, and that's why we always were cool. And he is someone that I was fortunate enough when I went to AEW. Didn't even know it was going to happen, but he pulled me, Ortiz, and Homicide together, and we filmed a little vignette for AEW that aired on its TV. So it was cool that he showed us, the New York guys, the respect for being the pioneers, the trailblazers, or whatever, on AEW TV in New York. So I'll always be grateful for that. And him and I talk every once in a while. Still the same old Eddie. Nothing's changed. Curses at everybody, which is awesome. And just someone that I like talking to.
There's about give me a minute. There's quite a lot. Donovan.
If you want, why don't we do this?
Oh.
Well, real quick before I get to that, why don't we do the top 5, and then we'll wrap it up from there if that's cool with you.
All right, sure.
So
sure.
Dijak is someone that I was fortunate enough to witness the first time him and Keith Lee went at it. And Moff, Homicide, and myself were watching at Beyond, and that match blew us away. They were doing such amazing things in that first match together. And as his name blew up, I was very happy. I would always talk to him, send him messages whenever I saw anything on TV to let him know that I thought it was awesome. And he always thanked me. And he's someone that's very cool. Big dude. Again, it's like, Billy Gunn. You don't realize how big someone is until you see them in person in front of you. But very funny guy, and very amazing wrestler. And I enjoyed me and Moff against him and Mikey Webb. We did a lot of cool things in that match. And again, he's someone else I wish I did more work with.
There's this a young up and coming guy who's on the main roster, Javon Evans.
Javon Evans is someone that I was quite surprised when he signed a contract. Not because I didn't think he was talented enough, but because I thought maybe he might have been too small, weighing less than 200 pounds. A lot of times is like a red flag for WWE, but always super talented from back when we wrestled, and we would always talk. He was always respectful, and that's something that stands out for me. If you're respectful to me, I'm going to respect you fully. And he's always been super respectful. He always came in with a smile on his face. He was happy to wrestle, which for me, honestly speaking, if I came from North Carolina to New York to wrestle, a lot of times I'd be like, because that's a long drive. But he was always happy and, like I said, super polite, super respectful. And I'm very happy to see all of his success, because he's been killing it on TV. You could tell they have very big plans for him. And I hope everything stays good and they don't, take those plans away, or he, God forbid, gets hurt.
How about Hanson and Rowe, or the War Raiders?
Yes, the War Machine, when we wrestled them. Actually, when they were War Machine, I was always trying to get a match with them, because I felt like the Hit Squad originally were the carriers and defenders of the Code of Honor for Ring of Honor. We were the first guys to do it. We were the first guys to make it mean something. We introduced the Code of Honor. And watching these two guys, go to New Japan, Mexico, Puerto Rico, all over the world and defend a code of honor in Ring of Honor was kind of like they were picking up where we left off with it, even though it'd been, a decade or more after. So when we were finally offered a chance to wrestle them, I looked at it as, old generation versus new generation. And we had such a great match with them and, build friendship and respect to this day. I'll hit up either one and we just BS about whatever in wrestling. And it's pretty cool that, wrestling was able to give that to us because there's a lot of guys that don't get that chance. But, War Machine, awesome tag team. I'm glad to see them. I love watching them on AAA, even though they're doing a lot more SmackDown now. But AAA is pretty awesome, and they're a big part of that.
Yeah, there's another guy in New York wrestler who came down, who occasionally comes down here. I think he's the current VCW Virginia Championship Wrestling World Champion, Rex Lawless, the pectoral Poseidon.
Sexy Rexy. I met him. Thankfully I was able to meet him through NYWC and beyond at the time. And another one of these guys, always respectful, always asking, questions. And if I gave advice, you'd see it in the next match and putting it out there. But he's someone that, I think injuries have kept him down a bit. But, hopefully he'll be on the next level soon because he's a very awesome specimen to look at. Big dudes, rock muscle,
Yeah, his physique speaks for itself. Like his physique and his work ethic. Like I remember when I was at the Liberty Lottery event last year and he won the VCW championship in a triple threat match. That's I remember. I was honestly rooting for him.
No, he's a good dude. He's a good dude.
Well, the last question I have is, whenever you do hang up the boots, obviously that's always a question lingering when you get into wrestling. It's like you don't think of that retirement in ring until you get to that point. What would you like to do when you end up putting your retiring, you putting your boots on the shelf up to the mantelpiece, and just what would you like to do after, whenever you decide to retire?
So, couple of things. I do not believe in announcing my retirement because one, we all know in wrestling retirements don't last. And two, I want to have that freedom to where if I stop wrestling and then maybe 2 or 3 years, something happens that I want to wrestle, I want to have that ability to do it and not be criticized for, oh, I thought you were retired, because to be honest, I would punch someone in the face if they did that to me. But,
they could have gotten like Terry Funk flack. Like he retired multiple times.
Yes. So I don't want to be on that level, but I will say this. Whenever I do believe it's my last match, I will make sure that if possible, there will be a mix of veteran and new talent in the match with me. It won't be a singles match because I've never been a singles guy. I've always been a tag team guy. And I just want to be able to have fun and enjoy what's going on in the match and help someone gain off of it. If you watch the Hit Squad wrestled their last tag team match in November for Respect Wrestling, and with that, it was with above the rest 2 young guys who are animals. They're both studs, Gabriel Sky and Ikuro Kwan, Tristan Tai. Both those guys are just insane animals. And I really wanted to help give their tag team a rub because they've been doing a lot of singles up to that point for a while. And they were getting back together. So I wanted to make sure to help them out. And it's been helping. So like I said, whenever it is my last match that I see, I want it to be along those lines. But after I retire, to be honest, I've had a lot of people tell me they want me to commentate. I've had a lot of people tell me they want me to host an interview segment. or a podcast. I'm down for all of that. Realistically, what I would like to do is one of two things: write a book about all of my crazy stories in wrestling, which I don't know how possible that is because I've forgotten a lot more funny stories than I remember now in my older age. And the second thing is to create a video game. Since I was 3, I've been playing video games, whether it was the arcade, Atari, Sega Genesis, whatever, all the way up to PlayStation 5. I don't think I'm going to get a PlayStation 6 because I don't want a non-physical future. However, I've always loved video games. Those are my second love, wrestling being my first. And I want to create a video game that, even if only I play and my daughter plays, as long as someone else plays it, it's all that matters. And just, enjoy the rest of my life, whatever it is that I do. I'm not too picky, honestly.
All right. I appreciate. I thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come on here and talk, talk and chop it up about wrestling. I appreciate you. I appreciate
doubt.
what you're doing.
Thank you for having
Doing
me
that.
on. It was a pleasure.
No problem, man. You have a good day now.
All right, take it easy, Kyle.
Take it easy.